I'd like to call this meeting to order. We need a motion to go into closed meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into closed meeting for the purpose of discussing the following: consultation with legal counsel and briefings for staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body, and consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring provisions of legal advice by such counsel. 1, Air Pro, 2, Backcountry. Also, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, discipline, or resignation of specific officers, appointees, or employees of any public body. Economic Development Authority, Library Board, New River Valley Emergency Communications Regional Authority. Discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or of the disposition of publicly held real property, or a discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, that is the former Blacksburg Middle School property. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Have a motion and a second to go into closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
5 ayes.
Need a motion to go out of closed meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go out of closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
I'll abstain. I wasn't present for most of the meeting.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 abstain.
Certification of closed meeting. Whereas the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia, hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the board. Do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for certification of our closed meeting. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
I'll abstain again.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
5 ayes, 1 abstain.
Next order of business would be our invocation. This is where the board observes a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand. And after we observe that moment of silence, we will be led in the pledge by Mr. Meadows, our county administrator.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our board meeting for April the 13th. And our next order of business would be a presentation regarding National Child Abuse Prevention Month. And Mr. Court Hall will make a presentation on the National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Welcome, Cord.
Good to see you all. Mr. Chairman, County Administrator, Board of Supervisors, I really appreciate you all allowing me to be here this evening. I've got my reinforcements with me tonight, and my wife and I have to do the tax service like a lot of you all do as well, so tonight we divided and tried to conquer. I'm not here as a member of the Town Council of Christiansburg. I'm really here as a thankful citizen. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate all of you with your continued support of the Department of Social Services, your continued support of recognizing April as Child Abuse Prevention Month. As you're aware, the Radford City, Pulaski County, Montgomery County, Town of Christiansburg, Town of Blacksburg, we've all done this together. And I think it demonstrates a unified front in what I consider to be the war that can't be won, but the battle that can be fought very well in day to day. I know there's individuals here on this board that deal with this issue every day. School teachers, absolutely as well. We all have to have our daily strife. The town of Christiansburg this month, and in our recognition, we're going to have a variety of speakers. We'll have someone from Child Protective Services coming in. We'll have someone from NRV Cares, Bev Walters. Some of you may know her, and unfortunately we're losing Miss Walters very soon. She's going to be impossible to replace. We have someone from the Child Advocacy Center coming in. This is going to be, I think it's Mr. Ballin from the town police, and Melissa Almond from the director of Radford DSS. They're going to be coming in and presenting together as well. In addition, we'll have someone from NRV Community Services that deals primarily with sexual abuse of children. So we have kind of all four corners, if you will, that are going to be covered. And the reason I wanted to come here tonight, we just finished up our 4th annual Pulaski County Child Abuse Prevention Program. It's a small affair. It's nothing to write home about, but it's our way as a small community to kind of get together and understand that there's a lot of things that we deal with daily in this particular struggle. The statistics are overwhelming, and as someone, and again I can speak for Mr. Tuck as well, he does this on a daily basis, the statistics make you want to just kind of throw your hands up. And I guess my father used to say, if it doesn't light your fire, your wood's wet. And I feel very strongly about that. 2.9 million cases are going to be reported this year of child abuse. 5 children a day are going to be perished within the country due to child abuse. 1 in 3 girls will be sexually victimized at some point before the age of 18. 1 in 5 boys will suffer that. I think it's 80% of children who suffer some type of child abuse during their adolescent period will have a recognized DSM diagnosed mental illness by the time they're 21. The costs are astronomical, and I know a lot of pressure is put on our Department of Social Services to deal with that. And I want you to know that there's a lot of criticism that comes to our Department of Social Services everywhere, the ones that I work with. Not enough appreciation is expressed from what they deal with day in and day out, and then being very proactive. This past week, we had a number of removals here in Montgomery County by virtue of their proactive nature and looking forward and trying to deal with the situation before it really blows up. They deserve a lot of gratitude. I think that sometimes they don't receive. In addition, all of you are aware of the Noah Thomas incident in Pulaski, which kind of hit like a hammer a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately is culminating now. We're kind of getting more and more of a glimpse as to the level of hell that child went through. So again, I'm here as a thankful citizen, and I'm here expressing my, I hate to say this, apathy, which almost permeates within me, that I'm just, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do, how can we combat this? Well, there's a few things we can do. And as I mentioned in Pulaski, we have this little program once a year. And this past year, we had a young lady from Richmond who came out. Now, all of you familiar with CASA, it's Court-Appointed Special Advocates for Children. They're volunteers. And I can't imagine wanting to volunteer their time away from their own families and their work to do this. But they do it because it's their passion, and it certainly comes through. We had a young lady, and Chris, Mr. Tuck, you might speak to this even better than I can. Nothing lights your fire more than seeing a child who went through it, came out of it, and looked back and said, thank heavens, people were in my life when I needed them. And this young lady's mother, unfortunately, we didn't ask her, but she was in the system at 11 years old, we believe, of an overdose from her mother. Her father was never in the picture. But she came back in as a 21-year-old college graduate, married, and is now a keynote speaker at the state level. to Prevent Child Abuse America, which is where you see this little, or Prevent Child Abuse Virginia. You see the pinwheels out? That's their recognized symbol, and they're truly who pushes Child Abuse Prevention Month and the National Child Abuse Prevention Month being April. But she came through and she spoke to us, and it is as if the clouds parted and the sun came out and shined upon her. She was a fantastic young lady and very much inspired all of us to go out and do more. I want to be here tonight. I want to be here tonight really to formally invite you all. We're trying this in Montgomery County for the first time ever. It's going to be on the 23rd of April. It's going to be from 6 to 7 p.m. Judge Byers, Honorable Judge Byers, will be the introductee of Judge Kim O'Donnell. I don't know if any of you know Kim O'Donnell. I think the world of her. She's no longer serving as a judge by virtue of what I consider to be some maybe archaic notions of a judge who I can't really get into that, but it's ridiculous because this lady was amazing. When a child walked into her courtroom, she had the ability, without stepping off that bench, to take that robe off, come down around the edge, and really invite that child in. I've never in my life seen children who felt more at home in a courtroom than when she was there, and it's just a travesty that she can't serve anymore. She was also the mentor to, I believe, Governor Kane's wife. The lady is very well known. Served in the city of Richmond judge for almost 30 years, so she's seen, I guess, and heard it all, as the saying goes. I'm honored that she's going to be able to be our keynote speaker this year on the 23rd. The program itself, it's not a whole evening. It's nothing that's going to be 3 or 4 hours long. It's 30 minutes. She's going to get up and give an inspirational message as to, yes, we know we're fighting the good fight. We know there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things we can't control, but there's a lot of things we can do. There's a lot of ways we can kind of look beyond and really try to progress ourselves. Following that 30-minute presentation, there's going to be a little reception, coffee, tea, refreshments, light refreshments. So we usually have a large cake just as a culminating event for our Child Abuse Prevention Month. I'm hoping this will catch on. Most important thing for me is that we have a unified community approach. I think you all, and I think the town of Christiansburg, town council, Blatchford County, I think we're in a perfect position to also lead that way. Mr. Brown, I know your service to the community, and I hope that we have law enforcement present. I hope we have prosecutors present, DSS present with the CPS and the foster care side. I hope we have CASA, attorneys, GALs. I hope that we have judges there, which I imagine we're going to have a few of those as well. But it just helps to present the, I think, the view that, again, it's an interconnected community and there's strength in numbers. So, again, I want to formally express my appreciation to each of you for your support of the Department of Social Services. I appreciate each and every one of you what you do. And I just want to formally, I feel like it's the right thing to do to invite you all. I'd love to see you all there. I'd be very honored if any of you were able to make it that night. But I know how schedules are. Again, trust me, I understand that. No hard feelings if you can't. But I want you to know that you're certainly welcome that evening. Again, thank you very much for your recognition.
Do you have a time and place?
Oh, yes, ma'am. It's 6 to 7 p.m. And the place is at the Montgomery County Courthouse. It's going to be on floor 2. And the courthouse, talk about proactivity, the courthouse is built to the degree where we can expand as population grows, and therefore we're gifted with that second courtroom there on the second floor, which is the larger of the 2 courtrooms. It's right beside the Commonwealth Attorney's office, and that's going to be the courtroom that we use, and we'll have a little reception right out in the main hall. So you kind of have to walk by and then walk back up beside it again. And the clerks, Amy, oh goodness, Blankenship, I believe is her name, and all the other clerks are the ones that are behind this as well. Judge Byers is behind this. I think it'll be a great event. Again, we're expecting between 40 and 50 people, maybe a little more than that. And of course, everyone in the community is involved. It's not just community leaders. We'd like to see everyone there because we all have the ability to play a role in this. I'll leave on one thing, because I don't want to take up a lot of your evening, but. I think all of you are familiar. We've talked about the Little Thomas case, but the case up there in Detroit, where you had the 11 and the 13-year-old kids. There was 4 children in total, and of course the youngest 2 children, if I recall, were found in the freezer 2 years after they. I guess at this point we realized they were murdered. All the neighbors would come out and say, "Well, we missed those kids. We saw them at one point, but we just didn't see them anymore." And I think that right there is the attitude, unfortunately, that a lot of us take, is that we don't want to step on toes when we're dealing with child abuse. And that's a touchy subject. If someone comes into my house, talks to me about my children, I'm going to take offense to it. And at so many times I feel like that we try to not get involved and maybe just report, but there's so many things. I guess why, again, an interconnected community, a proactive citizenry is crucial. Because as a teacher, as a GAL, I live at the schools because you see these kids that are asleep, are awake more than anybody else does during the day. And what you have to say is of critical importance to me in my investigation. So we all play that role. So again, thank you all for letting me be here tonight. Again, I appreciate you for what you do, and I'd love to see you on the 23rd. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next presentation will come from the Virginia Department of Transportation, Mr. David Clark.
Good evening.
Good evening, David.
Right now, in this part of the agenda, I'll talk about some of the maintenance things, and I believe a little bit later we'll have a public hearing on the secondary 6-year plan. But to start off, just to give you sort of an update of where we are with mostly our maintenance forces. We're coming out of winter, so we're doing a whole lot of patching, as much brush cutting as we can, grading, gravel roads. Again, the emphasis has been on patching. It's hard to keep up with it at this time of year, and that as well as the gravel roads. I know we've had a lot of calls and complaints about gravel roads. We're trying to get them as well as we can, but we also have to do the patching ahead of the overlay schedule, and even some of that's already started up in Preston Forest. I know we're starting to overlay some roads up there already. So it's keeping us very busy, as well as the stray thunderstorms and windstorms that we've had. We spent several days up on Dry Run Road, so where the northeastern part of the county connects Mount Tabor and Catawba Road. Dry Run Road's got several pipe that we put in many years ago, but it used to be open fords, and the board had that in a 6-year plan to put some pipe in. We did put some pipe in, but every once in a while you get some of these heavy storms and decide to take those out. So we spent quite a bit of time up there, like I said, as well as patching, some pipe replacements up in Bradshaw. We had that, an emergency pipe replacement up Bradshaw Road as well. We're continuing to work on some of the ongoing projects, construction projects that have been in the works since last spring or last summer. That mainly is Mount Pleasant Road. It's due to finish the section between the bridge and Split Railroad. It's expected to finish here this spring, in a couple months. We've got a couple revenue sharing projects that we're working on, very close to being able to start doing something on Brush Creek Road, and after that we'll head over to do the next part of Mount Pleasant. This summer, starting fairly soon, in fact I think the signs are getting ready to go up on Piney Woods Road, Route 600. That's part of that's your next construction project in the 6-year plan that's already gone to add and has been awarded and everything. That's going to be quite a lengthy project. That's roughly 2 miles, a little over 2 miles of unpaved road, and it's going to take all of this construction season and next to finish that one. So you'll see that starting up here pretty soon. Other projects that are going on, I remember that are going on, is there's a bridge down the Fayette across the North Fork of the Roanoke River. The old bridge is still in place. They poured some of the deck on that, but they still got some work on the abutments and some of the piers on that. And that's not due to finish until next year as well. 603 North Fork Road, in between the section between 81 and Route 11. They've done quite a bit of work on that first section. They're getting ready to start the next phase. And the next phase will be the one where the road has to be closed. And that will happen, that should happen next week at this time. April 20th is the date that that's scheduled to close. And it'll be closed for several months, almost a year for that. We've been working with emergency services on making sure we're able to station some vehicles on either side. And in fact, I talked to Steve Phillips today about trying to get some dumpsters, because they're located on the Route 11 side, so we get some people who like to use the dumpsters. We're going to try to put one over there at the parking ride right there next to exit 128, so that'll help out in that. It's going to be difficult with that closed. You don't realize how many people use a particular road till you close it down and think about all the different things that go on section road. But it'll be really good once that's done. We'll move that road away from the cliff, widen it up, and that'll be a good project when it's finished. Maintenance-wise, I believe one other thing, we're seeing a lot of activity by the railroad doing a lot of maintenance in the area, and it's had several roads closed recently, and they're getting ready to do one again next week. Walton Road will have to be closed, as well as Switchback, in that area between Route 11 and 114, and sort of the Vicar area. The railroad does that as they see fit. They let us, they do a good job of letting us know, but they have their maintenance schedule, and we sort of have to work around with what they want to do. As you recall, we recently did Friendship Road, I believe a couple others as well. So we're in that season where everyone's trying to get back and fix things up from wintertime. So that's also the time when you have a lot of traffic concerns. So that's all I have as far as updates. Again, we'll get to the 6-year plan here in a little bit. We'll take any questions, requests the board might have right now.
Any questions for Mr. Clark?
I just got one. You talked about Mount Pleasant getting done, and then there's a break from Mount Pleasant, and then going back to it again.
Yes.
Do you have any idea of when that might be?
Not sure. We're working with some of our guys and our hired equipment forces. We'll do Brush Creek, and then we'll probably the next one will be, of course, that hired equipment contractor works several of our counties. So I'll try to get a little bit better schedule on that for you once we know when Brush Creek can start.
Thank you.
I got a couple of them. You got a crew out on Brush Creek now?
I believe they have done some work on that there, yeah.
Up on the upper end, I had several calls again today. Up on the upper end next to Dobbins Hollow Road, I rode out through there, and there's nowhere in that road you can get away from a pothole. And it was discussed that it'd be out in a week or two, and I had several calls this morning. Like I said, they haven't seen nobody. They're on the other end, but they're not on this end.
Okay. Hopefully they're working their way through.
And on Fairview Church Low Water Bridge, you got any idea of the date on that?
No, they're keeping an eye on it. It's not gonna, they're not gonna let the whole thing, come out. But they've got it scheduled before it. I'll have a look. It's a separate crew we have that does those bridges and pipes. It's not our normal maintenance crew.
As much as I love talking to people when they call me, when they call VDOT and they send them to the Board of Supervisors talking about roads, and we tell them we don't have control over road money, if somebody can move up the ladder and tell him that the state people, Nick Rush and the rest of them, has control over that.
Yeah. All you guys have control over is the order in which we work on it. Unfortunately, with the decrease in funds, the order is there. You're not moving that wizard fast.
Right, yeah, but when somebody at VDOT tells them to call their board member, and then we tell them we don't have control, they say, well, VDOT said you did. Thank you.
Mr. Tuck?
Well, it's spring, and I was just curious about our Dirt Blue project. Where are we at in trying to remedy that situation?
I'm not sure, and Mr. Meadows might know a little bit more, but I think they were going to try to get the contractor in. That was a revenue sharing project.
It is, and right now, Dan Brew, who worked as the project lead for the county on that, is trying to get Dirt Blue to confirm a date as to when they'll come back and address that. And to my knowledge, so far, that's not been confirmed.
Okay. And then the second issue, you said Walton and Switchback will both be closed. Is that completely closed for the day, or is that going to be partial throughout the day where they'll just be flagmen?
It'll be closed. It'll be closed to through traffic from 9 to 5:30.
Okay. And I didn't know if we could put that out on our page or get that information out, and also make sure that our EMS is aware of that.
Absolutely.
That the roads are going to be closed down.
Yeah, that's all the way. It's just. It looks like it's just one day. One day. They're not both the same. They're on Monday next week. No, it looks like Monday and Tuesday. It's a 2-day closure for Walton Road, a 1-day closure for Switchback.
So Monday of next week and Tuesday for Walton Road?
Monday and Tuesday of next week for Walton, Wednesday of next week for Switchback. And if you want here, I just printed this off of our...
I was just going to post it on my Facebook, so thank you.
And our public information officer is sitting in the audience, and I'm sure she's taking notes as well.
Copy of that, because that went out to all our...
Thank you.
Thanks, yes.
Other questions or comments? I got one. One of my favorite numbers is 1-800 road. Is that still active?
It's no, it's not 1-800. I tell you what, it's, I think it's 38, I'm kind of can't remember the prefix. I don't think it's 387. I'm not sure. Chris, do you remember which one it is? I'll tell you, 381-7200 will get you to the call center, and it's located right down in Salem.
Well,
And they do the work orders, and they send them by computer to our area headquarters.
I know it a couple 3 years ago, and 1-800 Road was promoted. If citizens had a problem with the roadways or anything like that, all they had to do was call 1-800 Road, and that would go into some kind of center.
It's still the same thing, but I just don't think it's an 800 number. It's
Okay.
It's 1-800, but there's 3 more numbers.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't remember those.
I can't remember the numbers because I know when people call, when they call me, that's the number I give.
And there really is a really good number for your sort of average complaints, whether it be a dead animal or a pothole or anything like that, because they get it's logged into a computer system. It's given a work order number and is sent directly to our superintendents, who print those out every day, and they start working on them. And the other good thing about it, it gives it an identification number. So if the person doesn't see the results they'd like, they can call back, and there's that number there they can reference.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next item of business would be a public hearing. The following public hearing was advertised pursuant to law in the New River Valley section of the Roanoke Times on April 5th, April 9th, April 12th, 2015, and in the News Messenger April 4th, April 8th, April 11th of 2005. The Virginia Department of Transportation and the Board of Supervisors, in accordance with Section 33.1, 70.01 of the Code of Virginia, will conduct a joint public hearing as follows. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed secondary 6-year plan for fiscal years 2015 through 2016 through 2020 to 2021 in Montgomery County, and on the secondary system construction budget for fiscal year 2015-2016. So,
Mr. Chair, I was just going to say, in the board's packet this evening, under tab A, you have the roads that are currently being considered for the proposed 6-year plan. And those are Route 639 Mount Pleasant Road, which is under construction, Route 600 Piney Woods Road, which construction is projected to begin later this year through 2016, Route 606 Sydney Church Road, the design on that project's in progress, Route 639 Mount Pleasant Bridge, the design on that is in progress. And then in future years, additional funding for Route 643 Yellow Sulphur Road. Those are the 5 projects currently on the 6-year plan.
but at this particular time, we'll open it up for public comment, and I guess this public comment would be any other roads that people would like the Board of VDOT to consider as well. And
Thank you.
I'd like to say a couple of things about that, just sort of give a little briefing on that, clears up anything. This is the secondary road 6-year plan public hearing held by the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors does set the priority list. So this is the opportunity for the citizens of the county to come and talk to the board about roads they'd like to see next on the plan. These are for secondary roads, of course. There's a public hearing for primary interstate roads that'll be held April 29th in Roanoke. So that's for primaries, anything on Route 8, Route 11, 460, 114. Those would be heard at the primary road public hearing for the whole 12 county Salem district in a couple weeks. Mr. Meadows gave you the list. That's sort of a draft plan. The county is the allocation for secondary roads is roughly 350 up to 380 is the predicted in 2018 and 19. as well as for the 6-year plan. This is a hearing on the budget for next year, which is a little bit more fixed as far as the numbers go. They usually go down a little bit, but we're looking at roughly $285,000 for this upcoming fiscal year, 2015-16. $188,000 of that is provided by the Commonwealth Transportation Board and the General Assembly specifically for unpaved roads. And that's what you all have in the plan anyhow. It's been a long time since the county did a non-unpaved road project. One road that I put in the plan, just so you know it's there, but it's not taking up any of your secondary 6-year plan money, is the bridge on Mount Pleasant Road. We completed from Allegheny Springs to the bridge several years ago. There's a 1-lane bridge, and then the project that's ongoing now goes from the bridge to Split Railroad. But that bridge in between is a 1-lane bridge. It's very old. It's in the plan to be replaced, but it'll be several years before it's done. But we are working on design. We've had several meetings out on site. We're trying to decide the exact location and skew and how you're going to keep traffic going during the construction of it. So that project is ongoing, but it's still in the design phase. It's going to take some coordination and accumulation of money before that's done. But you may see that in the 6-year plan, but it's not using any of your county 6-year or secondary money. Our bridge office has discretionary funds that they're doing bridge replacements all over the district. So with that said, I don't know if you actually have any other questions real quick about the sort of the procedure and the process. I'll let the board go ahead and hear any public comments that there might be. And I'll be here afterwards for questions as well.
Okay.
Let me make sure I heard something right. You say the bridge is going to be replaced, but it's going to be 2 or 3 years?
Yes.
Just before you start on it?
Excuse me?
Before it's started on? Is that what
Yes.
And we do realize that children go across that every
Yes.
day?
I mean, it's inspected every year. I think it does have a weight limit on it, but I mean, it's not an unsafe bridge. It's just
I
not
went across it here a while back and had as many or more potholes on that bridge than all the roads around it. And it's got that big of potholes and got that much weight coming through there, jumping up and down all the time.
Well, that's why it's on the schedule to be replaced.
Well, yeah. Well, I understand that, but it's just, I guess we send you the obituary if one of them gets killed on there.
Well, we're spending all the money we can on all the bridges in
I understand.
12 counties.
But, there's a lot of difference between a road and a bridge, and that bridge is going over top of something that, when it falls, or it gets over out of the track, it can hurt.
Sure.
It can hurt some very dear children. Thank you.
Well, we'll
right.
open it up for public comments. If it's anyone in the audience who'd like to comment on a 6-year plan, highway plan here, and you can come forward and you have 5 minutes. State your name and address.
Hello, Loretta and Michael Estes, and we live on Pack Road in Roanoke, Virginia. So we're here to request that it is a gravel dirt road, mostly dirt, but we do appreciate the grading and the gravel, but we're here to request that it be added to the 6-year plan to be paved.
Yeah, and when summertime it's just a dust bowl, and in the spring it's a mud hole. Anybody that's ever lived on a road like that knows what I'm talking about. And we've been there for 25 years now, and the road is 6/10 of a mile long. It connects Piney Woods Road and Fairview Church Road, and we feel it's for the best interest of everybody to have it paved. Well, in the long run, as far as keeping up with the gravel and the grading and everything, it would probably be cheaper. And that's why we're requesting that it be put on the 6-year plan.
So there is a lot of traffic because it is a cut through. And a lot
school
of
bus, and Plus, people on that road would like to have their driveways paved, but they don't want to pave their driveways if you're going to run mud up and down. So,
And
we-
I'm sorry, and a lot of it is narrow. You can't
Yeah.
pass another vehicle on it, so that's dangerous too.
yes, it needs to be widened a little bit. But we would appreciate y'all considering it, putting it on the plan. Thank you.
And thank you. Any other citizens who would like to comment? Seeing no other citizens come forward, we'll close the public hearing. The next item on the agenda is public address. And we have 3 people signed up and to speak. You have 5 minutes. When you approach the podium there, direct all your comments to the board, the supervisors, and there's a little yellow light on it. That's when you have 1 minute. So,
I don't know if I can get it to come
if you
on
can
or
get
not.
it to come on.
I think it's 30, it might be 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So that's when it gets close. That little light is like a little warning light there to let you know that your time is about to expire. Maybe we didn't pay the light bill or something.
I didn't see the yellow light, but now you can see the green flashing light. That
Yeah.
means you're down under 30 seconds, but
Okay.
we always try to be gracious with the time, but sometimes
Okay. The first person who has signed up to speak is Bob Leonard.
Good evening,
Good evening, Bob.
Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for allowing this time. My name is Bob Leonard. I'm chairperson for the Christiansburg Institute Incorporated Board of Directors, and I'm here representing that board and the alumni who are associated with Christiansburg Institute. I'm here to thank you for your support of this effort. And I want to give you an accounting of how we have spent your money last year and to give you a sense of where we're headed. As you probably know from the request, we are asking for you to consider an increase to that funding. Last year, you were wonderful to contribute $5,000, and we're asking you to come up to where Christiansburg, the town of Christiansburg is at $10,000. If that's possible within your budget, and I know you all have many masters, so I understand that, but that's our request. This last year, our agenda has been to begin to professionalize our effort. The idea of renovating the Edgar A. Long building on the campus of Christiansburg Institute and getting that campus and the building improved to the point of being an asset in the community is extremely ambitious. We've been hard at work for years to get this to happen, as I know you all know. As we get closer to actual implementation and moving forward, we must be professionalizing our organization at the same time as we are developing our plans for forward motion. It is that we have spent your money on. We are pleased to be able to say that we were able to hire a professional contractor, a fellow named David Moore, who's a principal in the Institute for Policy and Governance at Virginia Tech, as a consultant for us in developing a strategic plan, business plan, and putting together a number of other consulting advice so that we are moving forward. I also would want to say that your money, along with the town and the money that we have raised as through private contributions, has been joined by the Appalachian Community Fund, which is based in Knoxville. And they have seen this project as worthy of their support. And it is that funding plus yours that has allowed us to hire the consultant, David Moore. What has been done with that consultation has been the development of a professional strategic plan and a business plan for this improvement. We can hope and wish all we want, but until we get the real questions in front of us and answered in a professional way, we're just sitting around and hoping. And this gentleman's aid has been extraordinary. He has put us in touch with, and we have received the consultation of Lacey Ward, who is a former director of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum in Greensboro, North Carolina, as well as having been the initiating director for the Moton High School Historic Landmark and Museum in Farmville. So his work is directly related to the kind of work that we're talking about. And we had a day with him, and he brought us up to speed with a lot of important strategies on what you might consider, including a brand new approach, which we had never heard from anyone before, and that is to look for a commercial or entrepreneurial partner in this effort. That rather than thinking that Christiansburg Institute can do this by itself, which I've known all along it can't, he is saying we can start on the front end and seek out entrepreneurial partnership in the development of this building, looking to the needs of the community as well as the needs of CI as a way to go forward. And we are pursuing that avenue of work very closely. We will be preparing a request for proposals, which we are hoping for either the planning district or the town to help manage, so that it would be done in a professional way and opened up so that bidders can really expect a fair and appropriate process. We've also received consultation from T-Square Preservation Services, a fellow named Terry Nicholson, who used to be the director of Smithfield Plantation. And he has prepared for us a first step analysis so that we can move forward in a phased way to get the building shipshape and ultimately improved. I'll be very quick to finish.
Well, Mr. Leonard, you already finished when that red light come on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And you didn't know you'd finished, but you already had finished.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here.
Mr. James Willis is the next who has signed up.
My name is James Willis. I live at 4220 Price's Fork Road in Blacksburg. In the interest of disclosure, I should say that I am a candidate for the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, last week's public hearing regarding the tax rate and the county budget, the number of attendees was notably small. We only had 3 people that came and spoke on either of those issues. And I recognize the time for discussion is past on that. And my purpose of being here tonight is not to influence your decision on either of those issues in either way. I just want to add a word of caution for what we do going forward. Montgomery County's financial situation is in rather precarious condition right now. As we noted in the recent budget meeting, our debt is 4% higher than the goal, 2% higher than the maximum that it should be. We're in a position where if we have to go further into debt, it's going to put our bond rating in jeopardy. And unfortunately, we have a number of needs coming up in the county that could be rather expensive. And they're probably going to come up before that situation changes. For instance, tomorrow the Virginia Board of Elections will make a determination on decertifying the wind voting machines that we use. If they do that, the county could be in a position of having to spend close to $130,000 to become ADA compliant before the next election. all too often Montgomery County has found itself in a position of having to make large expenditures because of unforeseen circumstances. Soon after I joined the military, I heard an old saying that poor planning on your part does not create an emergency on my part. I mean, fortunately, in the case of government, poor planning on the part of the government can often create an emergency on the part of the taxpayers. Obviously, we can't always see what emergency is going to come next, but we do know that the emergencies are going to come. They always do happen. And it's sound financial policy to plan for those emergencies. As an example of this, was mentioned in the recent joint meeting between this board and the school board. It was noted that the proposed budget, that as in previous years, no money was set aside for building maintenance. And the response was the no funding stream has been identified. Okay, well, if that's the problem, let me identify it. Every dollar that goes into government starts in the pocket of the taxpayer. That's the funding stream. We know we've got to do the maintenance. We know that the money's going to come from the taxpayer. We just need to plan on how that's going to happen. Another old saying that failing to plan is planning to fail. At the same meeting that the board decided to advertise the 89-cent tax rate, the decision was also made to provide $412,000 in grants for the proposed fieldstone development in Blacksburg. And I think it's fair to say that not a single penny of that money went to solve the problem that Montgomery County has. And this is just money that could have been used to resolve some of these issues we talked about before. And one of the problems that we've got is the inability to sell the old middle school property. If the city of town of Blacksburg was so interested in getting that done, we could have used that money as leverage to get them to cooperate with us on selling that property. But now that time has passed. In summary, my request is that in the future we spend money wisely on the needs of the county. We shouldn't be in the position of making charitable contributions to for-profit companies. The increase in property values does not equate to an increase in the household budget, and that's money cannot be spent on groceries, paying bills, or paying taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Betsy Dwayne.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Betsy Dwayne, and I live in the corner of Mount Pleasant and Archer Roads. On January 12th, 3 months ago, I presented to you all our complaints and concerns about an ongoing landfill and pig farm operation across the road from us. At that time, I posed questions to you to help resolve the problems with the runoff, erosion and sediment deposition, noise, and hazardous road conditions. I also posed recommendations for future landfilling permit issuances. Is it me? I was told that day that I would hear very soon from the board and from Montgomery County about problems and solutions, but to date, neither my husband nor I have received an email, telephone call, or regular mail from the board. We continue to be extremely distraught about the lack of our neighbors' concerns for our property and the lack of the county's concerns for the rights of property owners to use and enjoy their property the way they wish. In the current VDOT contractor for the second Mount Pleasant and Split Railroad, and I didn't know if you knew this, is dumping soil, trees, concrete, gravel, and metal culverts and tubes from that job on the property across the street from us. We've been told the metal belongs to VDOT and cannot be disposed of. In fact, as of today, there were 3 trucks and a flatbed blocking Mount Pleasant Road. There's heavy equipment parked there on a seems to be a permanent basis. 3 loads of VDOT waste came up from the Mount Pleasant Split Rail Road, backed into our street, and then turned around and dumped while I'm sitting out on the front porch. And there is no permit posted. The permit that I was aware of that was taken out in 2013 was to expire June 30th, 2014, but there is no permit currently posted. I urge VDOT not to use the same contractor for the next project. The history, the emails I've sent you, I have photos galore I can share with you, but this is just a nightmare. And we are dismayed that our rights as property owners are being ignored, sacrificed, and neglected. The Virginia waterways and soils are being contaminated. I'm a state master naturalist. My husband is a professional mining engineer who serves on several governor's committees regarding natural resources, land use, and sustainability. We both have contacts within the EPA, DEQ, and in the state legislature. A neighbor is already working with EPA concerning the pollution of the perennial stream in the downstream South Fork. I have notified DEQ, and a review with probable citations by that agency is underway. And I have to say, we are prepared to sue if necessary. We'll sue VDOT, we'll sue Montgomery County, we'll sue the contractors to stop the environmental destruction and the destruction that is occurring to our property as a result of work that far exceeds normal expected work in an A1 zoned area. I do look forward to hearing from you all about a potential resolution in the next few weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak during this public address session? If so, please come forward and state your name and address. Seeing no one coming forward, we'll close our public address session. Next item on the agenda is addendum. And
Did we have a chance to discuss any of these things from public address?
We don't respond.
I thought you had some. Didn't we change that?
Yeah, if you want to discuss them, we can discuss them as a board, but not with the...
No, that's what I mean,
Okay.
as a board.
Okay.
Aren't we supposed to have a discussion among ourselves after these things?
No, we can. If that's...
No, I just wanted
okay, go
to
ahead.
put in a good word for Christiansburg Institute. We did give them money last year, and I feel that the request that they've asked for this year is a reasonable one, to add $5,000 to the amount of money that we gave them last year. But now, I am sorry that I have to ask this question, but is this in part of our budget?
No, ma'am, at the current time, all the outside agencies are funded at the level that they were funded last year. We did have several requests for increased funding, but with the other challenges, we funded everything with level funding. We are going to have a work session coming up in just a minute on the budget, so I know that Carol's going to be reviewing some options for you to consider as we look at closing things out, and that may be something you want to suggest at that point.
I just thought that we had added into our agendas discussion among ourselves on things that had occurred during the public address.
Most action following public addresses, yeah.
And then, do we want to talk about that among ourselves, not with the people out there?
This would be a part of, to me, if it's an additional $5,000, it would be a budget, something that we could take up at the work session when it says FY 2016 budget.
Right.
If you want to add to it or delete or whatever.
Right. Okay. All right, that's fine. And then there was, excuse me, no, go ahead. I think there were some incorrect statements from one of our speakers concerning our budget and our financial position, and I would like to have those discussed too when we get to the budget item. All right? Thank you. Yeah, you.
If we want to discuss things, I'd like to do so too.
What?
I said, if we're going to discuss things, I'd like to get in on it. Here,
No, after
not
the
what you-
budget time.
Hey, go ahead. Go ahead, you want to talk about it.
Are we talking about, I thought we were going to talk about the budget during the work session.
Well, we're talking about, one, under public address, action following public address. And if it wants a discussion, then that's what it's on there for.
Okay.
Okay, and
Yeah,
do you
that's-
believe it wanted a discussion and,
Well, I'd just like to address the lady that was just up here, and I did not get your name.
Betsy Dwayne?
Betsy Dwayne.
Betsy Dwayne?
D-U-A-N-E.
And all I had to say was this. We had another gentleman from down there came up to our PSA meeting this past week and expressed his concerns with the same things that you're expressing. I've tried to keep up with them as much as I can. And I don't know, we were supposed to have gone and checked.
We have gotten some information, but have asked them to go back and take another look at some things.
Okay, so
And I know the Planning Commission, Gary, has been trying to take up the clean fill issue in A1. That's something that's been discussed. I haven't checked my packet for tomorrow or Wednesday's meeting, but I know that's as a result of some of the citizens' complaints in your district and also some of the concerns that was in Bill Brown's district, trying to weigh what clean fill is and trying to come up with some better definitions and working with Marty on that issue. I did call up when she said about a hog farm or a slaughter facility going in. I immediately called dairy the next day. There is no applications that I'm aware of or dairy was aware of to put a pig slaughter house.
no, and as he stated, and I told him then, I have been told that that's just there to kind of ruffle the feathers of the people who live there, to get them kind of upset a little bit. So, as far as we know, there's not going to be, never has been going to be a pig farm there.
And you're all allowed to raise hogs in an agricultural area, but when you start talking about slaughterhouse facility and the like, that has to require some zoning requests, and that has not been done. I heard the same thing that you did, that this is more to poke at the neighbors as the purpose of the sign than to actually.
I think they felt that the neighbors there had ruffled their feathers and they were coming back and they was going to ruffle theirs. So I don't know.
Doesn't the sign require a permit?
There is certain freedom of speech under the First Amendment, and when you start talking about things, there's a lot of different signs that can go up, and that starts putting questions as regards to what they can and cannot, what kind of signs can folks put up and not interfere with the First Amendment rights.
That's all I have.
I guess we're through with action following public address?
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, I'm easy. Addendum.
We do have one addendum, Mr. Chair, and this is a result of a discussion in closed session. We were asked to add the joint appointment for Mr. Alan Fabian as a citizen member of the NRV Emergency Communications Regional Authority. The suggestion was that we consider adding this as under consent agenda, but it's the board's pleasure as to where you may want to add this item.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if you wish me to make a motion to add this to the consent agenda, but I would so move.
Second.
Any discussion? Have a motion and a second to add it to the consent agenda. Would the clerk please call roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes to add to consent.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is consent agenda.
Move approval.
No
Second.
motion and a second. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
6 ayes.
Okay, do we need a 5-minute break before we go into work session?
I wouldn't mind it.
Okay.
Do you guys
take about a 5-6 minute break before we go into work session.
With a break?
Yeah.
I think I'll use the restroom.
Well, recess is over. Next item is into work session. Be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into work session for the purpose of discussing the following: FY 2016 budget, 2, eliminate split voting precincts in Montgomery County, 3, Montgomery County Public Schools request for capital funds. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into work session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gager?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs? Aye. Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Todd?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We're in work session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item on work session this evening is discussion of the fiscal year 2016 budget. Just an update on where things are. I believe Carol's got about an hour and a half PowerPoint presentation.
Please, I'll try and shorten it. Okay, there's a few slides tonight, and these are basically designed around some things you might think about funding with 3 different pots of money. One pot is there's some additional resources in your ongoing operating budget. The second pot of money is the windfall, as we call it, that would be from the June payment from the 1 cent for 89 and the 1% from the reassessment. The third pot is where we left off with the balance of undesignated monies from the prior year. You've used some of it, we've updated it, we've talked about some other things, and we'll talk about the balance that's left in that. So all of these things are in preparation for next Monday, where we will have a meeting in this room at 7:15 and ask you at that point in time to approve the tax rate and the budget. So with that said, let me get started with your ongoing operating. Again, these are dollars that reoccur from year to year. And as Mark always does, he goes back and goes through all of the estimates and tries to identify, working with the assessor and others, any additional growth that we can anticipate having come available during the next fiscal year. And with that, there's about $300,000 is the estimate of additional revenue. Now, with that also comes some revision in estimates. This one's from the comp board. From the preliminary estimates to the ones available now, it reduces it about $25,000. So the net of the available revenues for ongoing monies for your upcoming operating budget is about $275,000. Possible uses, and we've come up with some things that either have been mentioned or that we have identified on our own. The first of which is public safety building maintenance contracts. They just got left out. It was a mistake. It should have been included in the, with the maintenance items and the funds for the operation of the public safety building, and they didn't. They were left out.
So we'd really like you to include that.
We'd really like you to include that.
You mean in a $175 million budget, we forgot one thing and $19,000? That's pretty good.
I'm sure there's others.
I think they intended to do that to see what we catch.
This is the one thing we're telling you about. We were asked to look at some numbers for the inmate work crew. We sent you some information before about that. If the board so chooses to fund it, that's almost $100,000.
Before we go on that, let's talk about that a little bit so we can go back to it. I'm really opposed to adding personnel to the staff here. I mean, I don't have a problem with the inmate crew if we set some overtime aside for the existing deputies. When you start talking about adding a position and something happens with the inmate work crew, that person would be just sucked in as another position in the sheriff's department.
I understand.
Yeah.
And I had a meeting with the sheriff to talk about that very thing. Talk with P and Robbie. And I think your point's well taken. If we went ahead and set aside the money that we were going to utilize for a full-time position and allowed them to use it for overtime with the existing deputies, that would give us a year to see, is this inmate crew going to work? Is it going to be able to pick up where we're paying contractors to mow the grass at different locations? Is it a workable solution? If it's not, we can utilize the equipment that we're buying. That can be transferred over to maintenance.
Yeah, the maintenance
and so
portion,
that
okay.
would be an issue. If the program works, then maybe next year we would look at really creating a full-time position. In talking with Robbie and the sheriff, they understood that. They seemed to be okay with that. And that they have about, I think, $15,000 in the budget that does their roadside cleanup with their inmate crew. And so perhaps this would be in addition to that, to be able to work with it in tandem. But I understand your concerns about adding, and without knowledge of, is it going to work? And then having to lay somebody off next year if it doesn't work. And
Well, usually what happens is that if you put it out there, when it comes to laying somebody out, they just sort of absorb that position within that department, and next thing you know, it's one additional person there that we are funding. I really support the inmate work crew program, and because they've done a lot of good in the county, but to add a position with fringes and all of that, it's kind of expensive.
So, like I said, where I'm at is not creating a full-time position, but utilizing overtime money to pay existing deputies. That'll help them to make a little extra money. No deputy will be forced to do that duty, but it gives them a chance to work some overtime if they so choose. And it allows us to be able to utilize the inmate work program. And like I said, we're paying contractors on a couple of different sites at least to pick up the mowing where our current county staff can't pick up that. And so to me,
we have quite a few properties contracted out right now because we don't have the equipment and resources to keep everything cut.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Well, now, the Sheriff's Department has a contract through VDOT too, and VDOT pays so much.
They do.
And the county's got $20,000 set aside, is that correct?
I'm looking
for
at
some
one.
reason I thought it was 15, but
20.
It may be 20.
$20,000.
20.
Mark says it's
I stand
20.
corrected. I thought it was 15,
And
so it's 20.
I think that's a good start. I mean, I got a position, and you said somebody don't pay child support. That's all fine and dandy. But my opinion is, you don't pay for your kids, you need to sit in there.
Well, and I see what you're saying. I agree with you. If you're not going to pay your child support, you should not be, and that's where the judge is. But the question is, do you have them sit in there for a full year, or do we utilize their labor and be able to give them an opportunity to be able to get out? Because many of them want to get out and get in that sunshine, and we only pick the trustees, and so the community benefits from it. But at some point in time, at the end of that 12 months, because as long as you can be incarcerated for failing to pay child support is 12 months, they're still going to be somebody's neighbor. Now, we've either trained them for the last 12 months to get 3 meals a day and sit on a cot, or maybe we can train them and teach them, hey, this is how you mow the grass, this is how you work a weed eater, and do those type of things. And hopefully, then when they get out, maybe they'll have that work ethic. Many of them do want to, believe it or not, they have the opportunity to sit in those bunks and play cards and sit with themselves and be there in 3 squares a day. But there's a lot of them who want to be trustees. On some of the things where we're dealing with people who, let's say they're serving time on a DUI. Well, one, they're not going to have access to alcohol because we're going to have a deputy monitoring. But we give them the opportunity to be able to do something to benefit our community as well. And so that's where I'm looking at. And then I guess part of me, a big chunk of my practice is going over to Giles County. And I see that already. Now, they use their inmates on the trash trucks. So the people that are going through the town of Harrisburg, they have inmates who are picking up garbage off and utilizing that. But again, it's inmates that the Sheriff's Department has designated as trustees. And when people are serving non-child support offenses, they can get an extra day and a half off of their sentence per month. Well, for a lot of folks, if I can work that extra, think about it, if you're serving a 12-month sentence, that means 12 extra days or 18 extra days of your life that you'll be able to get back if you're willing to work. And there's a lot of folks who are willing to do that when they're in the jails.
And then that reduces our cost for keeping them in the jail.
Exactly.
Let me ask a couple questions about this. One, whose machinery are we going to use?
That's part of it, is buying some machinery to be able to, if it does work, it'll be turned back over to our maintenance, and we'll have some new machinery. We'll be able to utilize that. If it does work, we'll be able to maintain it.
And secondly, doesn't even if they're the best people they got in jail, don't we have to pay to have somebody go out and watch over them all day while they work?
Yeah,
that's what the overtime fee is going to be. This is not, if you remember, there was an email that went out and it had specifically, and Carol can correct me if I'm wrong. There we go.
That's the.
It breaks down the vehicle that would be utilized, the trailer, the mower and equipment, and miscellaneous equipment. So the full-time deputy, we would be looking at roughly $55,000 in overtime. The rest of it would be equipment.
One deputy is going to do it all, or two deputies, three
Well,
deputies?
it'd be part-time, and that would be up to the
Paid by the
constitutional
hour.
officer as to which one of the deputies. But with the trash trucks, our trash pickup, litter pickup that's on 460 typically, they rotate officers who want to work some overtime. And that's done on a regular basis.
That's just a couple of questions.
And again, we are paying folks to do that right now. We're paying folks.
I know that. I mean, I know how the first part of it was going. The second part is what I don't know what's happening here.
So we had to buy a $26,000 truck.
That's one of the things that the sheriff's department said, that they needed a vehicle to be able to pull a trailer. You work at
in this proposal, the initial capital outlay is kind of expensive. But if it was an ongoing program, you already got your truck, you already got your mower, your equipment, and all this stuff. So the following year, all you have to worry about is the time for the deputy, I guess the salary and fringe benefits. Everything else is already there in place.
Well, I don't mind upping the 20,000 up a little bit more, but I got a problem with spending $100,000 for a look see.
Now, what are we spending right now on mowing on all the different sites and contracts? Because that's what we're looking to replace. So it's not just $100,000. You got to remember, we're paying thousands of dollars to mow.
So you're going to cut all the contractors out?
I hope to.
Cut as many as we can. I know we're paying, I want to say 15, 20,000 a year. Does that? I'm not sure. I know a lot of it is through economic development. We maintain all the surplus school properties. We maintain some of the properties in Blacksburg Industrial Park around the technology manufacturing building. We maintain the grass out at Fallen Branch Park. So we have some pretty hefty contracts.
Oh, I know.
So
if you're going to do that, you are going to have to hire a whole new deputy.
Well, for the first part, we'll see if it works. Now, let's say it doesn't, but remember, it's not like we're going to throw away that equipment. We're going to say, let's look at this and see if it's going to cut into the bill $20,000. Then, just like Mary talked about, it can cut down on our jail bill. And was it year before last, our jail bill went up $600,000 in 1 year? So, if we can cut into that, I'm not saying we're going to cut it down a huge amount, but if we can cut into a little bit, and then we benefit from it. And then there's a lot of different benefits that we may be able to reap from it. Part of it is the rehabilitation aspect of it at the jail.
Let me also clarify, Mark just brought me up to date, the fact that the ACA contract is what helped pay for the inmate litter control program. That contract's not available anymore.
Okay.
And how much more equipment do you think we're going to buy for $11,000?
So how much are we paying for that?
I know.
26, okay. I'm just going to turn around. You ask a question, I'm going to say, Mark, what is it? It's $46,000 apparently is what economic development paid a contractor to cut grass at all the surplus buildings.
Now, that includes snow removal too? I'm sorry because the same contractor does our snow removal.
It might, I guess inmates can do
Well,
snow
we need to know that
removal, I don't know.
Inmates, you put a shovel
Put
in
a
their
blade,
hand.
yeah.
It does include snow removal.
Okay, so that's
grass
year
and
round.
snow
That's what I
removal.
thought.
So we're replacing a $46,000 contract with a $99,000 one?
Well, we're not replacing the entire 46 either. So that's,
Well, I have a few questions. Is that one, if this is replaced, if the full-time deputy is not being proposed right now and overtime for existing deputies is being suggested in its place, are we talking about the same amount of money? Or are we talking about a reduced amount of money? Because
well, you wouldn't have.
That's a lot of overtime.
Right. Overtime's time and a half money versus that full-time deputy includes benefits and whatnot. So it's not dollar for dollar, but if you're paying overtime, you're going to be paying time and a half.
Yep, you are. And then the other thing is that this is suggested to go into the ongoing funds, but almost everything except for that first line right there, well, probably the gas as well, the insurance, is one-time money.
The thought was that we would use the ongoing money for this first year to include the capital. In the succeeding years, that number would drop to probably 50 to 60,000, because at that point you're only including the deputy. You would include insurance and some of the repairs. And the other thought was, I mean, we run a very lean operation. We talked about, do we need to buy a truck? Well, we don't have a truck to pull a trailer, and we don't have an extra. And I've heard a question on this, and the mower is one of the big deck mower, so they can knock out large areas. It's not a
I got one.
yeah, they're nice.
Well, and
So-
let me just update how the base process works. This, if it's funded in the operating budget at this, next year when the base budget targets are set, Mark will remove anything that's one-time only from that target, and that will be available for reallocation in the total.
But if you were to
But
adopt
that's
this,
still a cut then.
yeah, you would be looking at least probably 60 plus or minus
Yep.
a year.
Yep. So then we're cutting 60,000 from the sheriff's office.
Well, we wouldn't be cutting it from the sheriff's office in regards, this is one-time money. We would be saying that this project, we would be removing $40,000 as a capital expenditure roughly.
Right.
Right, and the way the process works with the base, it would get removed, but they certainly can request it for something different if the sheriff's office has needs, as well as others.
Sure, but I'm saying that when that budget is presented next year, there would be 60, if we were to approve this, there would be 60,000 less dollars in their budget. So
No,
it would look
no,
like,
no,
they would not.
No, because that's why, and Carol's going to talk about that. There's three pots. This first part is ongoing funds. We've identified approximately $275,000 a year this year going forward. So if you include this as part of that 275, it will just roll forward. We won't have to cut anybody next year to continue to fund it. It's already in the ongoing.
No, I understand that, but when the sheriff's office budget is presented, this is going under their umbrella, right? This is being transferred to the constitutional officer's office to run a program.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It will continue. The program will continue to run.
Yes.
But in the total dollars that are allocated, it will look like $60,000 have been cut on our end. We know right here in this conversation that that's because these were one-time funds that were allocated under existing funds, but it may be perceived as a cut to the overall budget of the sheriff's office. Now, we know it's not necessarily a cut and anything's going to be lost, right?
I'm confused.
It's how you perceive it. Generally, what ends up happening is that there are additional requests made, and those get added back. So you're not generally comparing base to base, but if you were doing that, in fact, it could look that way.
I'm sorry, I got yes.
Yeah,
yes,
like
I got
if
you.
I give you 2 apples this year and you only want one apple next year, and I give you one apple,
Looks like I took
I've given you one less apple than I had last year, even though you've only wanted one apple.
So would you feel more comfortable if the 40,000 roughly came out of one-time money and then 60,000 came out of operating?
Well, that gets to my second point, is that before I would commit to this, I would want to know what the recidivism rate on existing counties that operate this. Does this actually help keep people out of jail, or is this a nice kind of, well, we think it's going to kind of work situation? Also, what are the impacts to the rest of the budget about where are other savings going to come from? Is it indeed going to cut down on jail costs? Is it indeed going to cut down on contracting costs? And if so, what are those amounts? Like, what are we talking about? Are we actually going to spend more in this situation than what we might save elsewhere? Right?
And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, we don't know the answer to that, and so right now I'm not ready to commit to this.
I think Giles County actually has some figures. I could be wrong about this, but I went to this workshop where they spoke about their different programs where they involve inmates and different citizens. And I'm thinking that they might have what you're asking for as far as, does it cut down on, going back to jail? I think I heard that at the workshop, but I know that their county, their administrator would have it, right, Craig?
Sure they have it. I mean, because that's something you would brag on, right, all the time.
And they've been working the program for about at least the 22 years I've been practicing.
Yeah, they've done it for a while.
It seems to be effective as far as looking at the parks that they maintain. Do y'all remember the big park when I was wanting to, and I think Matt was wanting to take in a park, the River Group?
Yeah.
They use their inmate labor to maintain that whole river bottom. We're talking about cleaning up and doing the mowing, but on days where we're not mowing, they could be working on public properties, maybe cutting a new trail for the frisbee ball.
Again, I agree. It's probably cheaper, but again, I mean, Giles County is not in the greatest financial situation. I mean, they probably do it because it's cheaper. Like whether or not it actually keeps people from returning to jail, like that's something I would just want to know. And that could be very simple. Yes, it does. Here's the data. I'd be like, great, sounds good. But before I would commit to this, then I would want to know that information.
That's good.
So that's my concern. I would want to know those specific numbers about how much we would save elsewhere within the budget, and I would want to know about the recidivism rate from other counties that have utilized that. And again, I mean, that information is probably out there.
If they've been doing it for 20 years, I don't know that they're going to have a recidivism rate and how it affects. I may be wrong, but they're going to have to balance it versus what they've done in the past. So it's going to be difficult for them to pull up that information. But Chris McClarney may be able to do that.
Yeah, Chris will. I'll try to find out.
We also don't need 12 months of your coverage.
Well, I was thinking we would utilize them for snow removal.
Well, you gotta have snow before you have removal.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Well,
I can understand them maybe being on standby if we happen to need it for a day or two. But
and of that,
that's where a fund, as far as having it, why you might not want it full time and may want to utilize it on an overtime basis. Hey, look, Matt's working as a deputy. We don't need him this week. We've got all the projects taken care of. So that money doesn't have to be spent unless there's a project that they need them on.
Right, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Why spend for something that may not happen?
Right, but we would have them there, and you always want to budget for things in case you utilize them, and so you don't end up going over budget.
Well, you can have the money, but that money can have to pay for the next year and the next year and the next year as you go.
of that 47,000, I appreciate Angie shooting that up here. 30,000 was snow removal. 17,000 was for. Oh, just 3,000. Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Okay, I thought you dropped zeros. I got you.
What was that again?
Of the money we spent, 3,000 was for snow removal, and then 3,000 snow removal, 1,700 for miscellaneous landscaping, so the rest was mowing.
So about 40-some thousand?
42, 41.3.
So roughly the cost of, about $10,000 short of what the program would cost per year. 10, 12,000.
And that's something you don't have to know right now. This week you may have 10 people that's in jail that would like to get out. 2 weeks down the road, you might not have but 2 or 3. So you can't really depend on that labor quite as much as you can others. So you have to kind of be a little bit flexible there.
I don't think there's any shortage of people wanting to get out of their work. I mean,
When talking with Kim at the jail, and Robbie and the sheriff spoke with her, they don't have a problem with having trustees. And if you remember, a lot of times that we keep inmates still at our Montgomery County Jail. Some of the more hardcore inmates get sent to the Western Regional Jail because their facility is more modern and able to deal with more difficult inmates. So we keep, if you would, the cream of the crop up here at Christiansburg, and that gives us, and that's where the workforce would be primarily coming from.
And I agree to that somewhat, but at the same time, you never know when one of them is going to come out and do something to someone else or themselves. And for instance, just in the jail here last week, who would have thought?
Actually, that was
in that courthouse up there that man was going to come out there and slash his throat, and had just came through the radar.
But he wasn't an inmate.
He wasn't an inmate.
No, but he was
Get the agenda.
In the process of being taken into custody.
He was wearing a bracelet. They knew where he was at all the time, and he came through the thing that's supposed
I
to
will
tell you where he's at.
guarantee you that Tommy Witt or any other sheriff is not going to put someone who's charged with murder on their work crew. I don't mean to speak for the sheriff, but
and I don't think he will either. But at the same time, his deputies didn't let people come in knowing that they were going to hurt themselves. So I mean, things happen, and then who's at fault? That's all I was going to ask.
Well, that's the risk with anything. Anything can happen anywhere at any time. I mean, it's the same thing. Anything can happen here at any time.
Sure.
I hope that it don't, but it could. And so you don't scrap the entire program. If that's the case, Giles County never would have a program if they thought something was going to happen. And even here, I mean, we've had people work on the ACA contract in their little orange jumpsuits out there working. And but I mean, to my knowledge, nothing has ever happened. But the possibility is there for something to always happen.
One other question that we might need to consider is those contracts with those vendors are annual contracts, and I don't know the term, so if we have to give notice.
obviously I don't want to see us breach a contract.
Right.
Obviously, we'd have to comply with our contractual obligations.
My guess is they're fiscal year contracts, but I don't know.
Okay.
And plus, if you do something full-time, you're going to have a trained person. I mean, through the academy, you get them uniformed, and if you go that route, or you hire a certified person to, so
and I agree.
It depends on what.
Like I said, I talked with the sheriff as well as Robbie, and I think your point's well taken on not bringing in a full-time person until we know that this is going to work and is going to pay for itself and help us in the long run.
I think Carol stopped translated for Mark, and Mark's going to speak.
So the question was raised about the ICA contract, and so essentially that contract ended. VDOT lost the contract to ICA, and so as a result of that, there is another provider that is providing those same services, and they're out of Greenville, Virginia. And so I sent that information to the sheriff's office so that they could continue that program if they desire. Now, the sheriff's office would have to contact that new vendor in Greenville and then set up the same sort of arrangement that they had through ICA. So that's what is going on. So right now, they're not currently doing anything under that previous contract. The only thing that has happened is the county's resources that have been allocated, the $20,000 for inmate litter pickup in the county, not out on 460 and the other major outlying areas. That's the only work that's being done right now. Okay. So the sheriff's office would have to get a hold of the new contractor in Greenville set up an agreement to provide those services and then run that the same way that ICA was running before.
I saw some workers on the road today on 460, and they obviously weren't inmates. There was nobody supervising, and they were collecting garbage. So that must be the contract that you're discussing with VDOT.
That's right.
Okay, and we had one more item here on the ongoing list. If the board so chooses, we've been asked to look at finding some additional funds for schools. If you were to do 1 and 2, if you choose to do that at those levels, then that would be the balance of dollars available for the schools. Now, I will say in terms of what you need to approve for the overall budget, if you're not prepared to make any of these decisions at this point in time or next Monday, you can certainly hold the available revenue and special contingencies and make some decisions later if you need some additional information. We would like to go ahead with the building maintenance contracts because we know those are coming up, but if you have considerable concern about the inmate work crew or the amount that you want to provide to schools, or if you have other things you want to do on that list, you don't need to do them now in order to finish the budget, although I'm sure that the schools would like to know what they have available in order to finish their budget.
This would also be the likely area that if you were to consider any increase to the Christiansburg Institute or any other agency, if you would be looking at that as an ongoing amount, it would need to come from one of those possible use areas too. So
That's what I was wondering, exactly what area it would come from. I thought it would come, if we put it in ongoing funds, then we don't have to worry about constantly trying to put that much money in. And I think Mr. Leonard and the other people for Christiansburg are really trying very hard to make this into the kind of place that it ought to be, because it's a very special part of our county. And so if the town of Christiansburg can afford $10,000, I would think we could too, if it's coming out of these additional funds. Not that I necessarily want to take it away from school or any other place, but is this the only category we're going to look at that has ongoing funds?
Yes.
Okay.
To me, just the 19,000 is a given. We've got to deal with it.
Thank you.
So we're really dealing with roughly 155,000 or 255,000, excuse me.
Right.
So that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay.
You want to move on?
We're ready, we'll move on to the second pot, which is one-time only funds. These again are the windfall dollars from the 1% and the 1 cent for the June payment. That's unbudgeted, and that's how you get the windfall. The possible uses here came from some things that have been mentioned during the course of the budget discussion that you would like to see funded, along with the library drainage issue. That's an issue that's come up. Apparently, it's the Christiansburg Library. And because of that, it's caused a safety issue where ice was freezing on the front of the building, and it was dangerous for people at certain times, and the library board would like to have that resolved, I believe. The library master plan, Paula has been searching across the universe, I think, trying to find what would be a reasonable cost, and I think we have everything from $10,000 to $110,000. So she did identify someone recently who actually submitted, who was the consultant who did a master plan and who submitted some information about their cost for that. So we've parked it at $35,000. That's what we paid for the Parks and Rec master plan, and that's what we've set aside for this particular plan. The parental leave reserve, the board had asked that we set that aside in the event that it would be needed in the future for the adoption of paid parental leave. The Frog Pond refurbishment, this is an issue that if we're going to keep it open, we're trying to get it open this current year with still continuing to patch some of the plaster, but it is an issue that if we don't do something across the board, we may not be able to get it open the following year. Most of these contracts for pool companies, you need to have them in place in the fall in order to get this work done. And that's the estimate that we have in terms of doing the work in order to refurbish it. The pool is about 20 years old. The school bus replacement, the request from the schools for buses was $350,000. This parks it at 153, and I've estimated half of that being 2 buses. The technology, the request was $150. If you want to consider the $150,000 of these funds for that. We also supplied you with some information regarding the surpluses in the bond accounts that could be used or allocated toward more capital projects such as a major roof replacement projects and those things. So all total, if you want to consider these items, again, it's completely up to you. If you want to consider these or if you want to consider different amounts, but these are the ones we've heard talked about and the estimates we've put together.
Can I ask about the Frog Pond refurbishment, which I'm really happy that that's being suggested here. What is the refurbishment? Is it just is it an updating, or is it just a fixing things, or is it
fixing and replastering?
It's completely replastering the insides of the pool.
We've been patching the last couple of years, but the concern is because of the amount of patching we're having to do at some point, if we don't completely eliminate what's there and replaster, we're going to have I guess spring a leak at some point that could create a big.
Yes, we have. And yes, we're trying to fix it so it will have a life longer in the future.
So it's fixing, not updating.
Fixing, I would guess, along with some updating.
Fixing it, it won't change the configuration of the pond of the pool now. No, won't change. It'll still be the same.
You're making sure there is a hole in the bottom of the pool.
We're refreshing it so it'll be there another 20 years instead of having to worry about
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm sorry. I'm not being clear today. I apologize about that. But there's nothing new that would be a part of that.
No,
the
Frog
Pond would exist as it is. It would just be fixed.
Yes, it's to be able to continue to use the existing facility as opposed to having repairs to the extent that we have to take it out of commission for perhaps a year. Thank you.
One statement here on this, for the school bus replacement and the technology for schools. I've been down that road before. And it didn't work out too well from what I could see. It never did get it never happened.
Well, I agree with you, Gary. I know you had the problem, but since that time, I thought that we'd worked better. I mean, I agree with you. You got burned, and I understand where you're coming from. But I thought that they had, after our boards talked a little bit, that they had agreed to kind of abide by those things. Now, this is a suggestion from us, and I know that that has been a different creature when we've suggested how to spend the money that we're allocating to them.
Well, this is based on the request from the schools for additional funds for technology, school buses, and maintenance.
So if we fund this, do we have that commitment? So we don't have the situation that Gary's talking about.
You never had one.
Well, isn't the letter on tab F?
No, we're going to, yes, ma'am.
We're going to.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of the work session tonight too, is to
And again, you don't need to approve these things tonight. This is just to show you the various pots so you can be prepared for what you may want to set as your operating budget for next month.
And that's a valid point, because these funds do not increase the 176 million. These are one-time funds.
That are gone. They're not there next year.
Right.
Right. And moving into the next slide.
Before we move to the next slide, go ahead.
I would like to see us give $13,000 to the Fire and Rescue Commission to help out on this burn building. The burn building that they got a grant from, that they're running into some problems, and it's $13,000 to get water to part of it.
That's true.
And then the other piece, I think Christiansburg is going to donate some equipment and time and everything to get it up to where it needs to be from the property line. And in talking with Chief Hanks, who started heading it up, they needed like $13,000.
Yeah.
Could I
Yeah, but
suggest
if you
that
give
we-
it to the
Sorry.
Fire and Rescue, yeah.
Could I suggest that we take it out of the undesignated dollar one-time funds, which is actually the next slide? So we just reduce slightly the reserve for the animal shelter? Because that's
That's
one-time
fine.
funds as well,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, that's fine.
Before we go to the next
As
slide,
long as we can get
I
it.
know Todd and I want to talk, sorry. We want to
Okay, we
go back.
can go back to the
I'll let
previous
Todd go
slide.
first.
Now, did we not, in school, when they presented their budget, they was gonna buy 5 buses? I sat up here and asked them if that meant 5, and they said, yeah.
But, yeah.
Is that this, sir?
Yes, but then the letter that we received, which we're going to talk about under tab F, is that they're suggesting that they would take that out of their budget, and they're asking for it out of one-time funds because it's a capital expense.
Why would they take it out of their budget if they need it?
Because they're asking for from a different pot of money. This is one-time
Put
money.
it over and use it and get this other one and maybe use it.
Can I ask what the long-term, we've got a library master plan, and right now, we can't borrow any more money for until 2023. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Within a year, yes.
So if we pay for a library master plan now, is it going to be a smart way to spend our money when we can't really do anything major until that 2023 date? And that's something I'm posing to the board. As far as coming up with a library master plan, because it's going to be out of date by the time that we can do something with it.
But if you don't never put it in there, you're never gonna get it.
But if we do a plan today, is that plan going to be effective 8 years from now in talking about what we need? I guess is my thought.
No, it'll be, you'll need more by then.
Well, no, but that's just for the plan, though. I'm saying that the plan that if we pay somebody to come up with a plan and say, okay, you need to spend $12 million to build a new library. Well, we can't spend $12 million to build a new library, and by 2023, that new library may be $24 million, and it may be, or the needs, or the technology may be growing where everybody's got ebook, and we're checking those out, and it's a totally different plan or a totally different desire. I do understand trying to look for the future and plan for the future, but right now, financially, I just don't know that we're in a point where we can borrow the money to update. I was in Blacksburg's library the other day. It is well used. That place is packed. I understand that they're going to be looking at expanding that at some point in time, but really we can't afford to do that right now.
Look, I'm gonna tell you, my estimation of this is this. I don't think there's a better place that we have to fund than the libraries, whether they in Blacksburg or Charlottesville or Christiansburg or wherever. That is a good place.
I'm saying, all right, give them $35,000, but let them use it today to buy books and things like that today, rather than a plan that's going to be outdated. Hey, listen, I'm a big fan of the library. Listen to books on tape all the way to Nashville and back. And if I could figure out how to download the app, I would, because I can't, but I still haven't gotten, my phone's not smart enough, and I'm not smart enough to operate my phone. But Do you see what I'm saying? That plan is going to be outdated if we get it now.
Everything we do with is going to be outdated. If we keep it 5, 6 years,
But
no matter what it is.
how are we going to
Cars,
use that?
trucks, vans.
I think that, yeah, I mean, but
But the plan is different than a car or truck. You get to use a car or truck today.
that's true, but.
You get to use an e-reader
That's
today.
absolutely true, and by this logic, though, we should ask the school board to foreclose their plan that they're undergoing right now about the Christiansburg strand, because we can't do anything about it for the next 8 years, right?
Well, no, but we're hopefully going to be able to do that if we can sell the old Blacksburg Middle School site. We continue, and I've said publicly, I was wrong about setting 2 cents aside because I didn't think that we would continue to leave it alone. We have left it alone. We've sold the Junkin Street property. We're going to be able potentially to do something about the Christiansburg strand.
How do you know we can't do anything about the library? Because we don't have the plan to know what we actually need.
Well, because right now we know we can't borrow any more money.
You're right, and we can't borrow it for schools either.
But we're setting aside $1.2 million every year, or 1.4, excuse me, every year. We're going to sell, hopefully, old BMS at some point in time in my life. And then we've continued to sell the properties to be able to set aside money to be able
But
to...
we're still going to have to borrow to build a new, or to refurbish a new Christiansburg High School, right?
New high school that's 2023. That's
Or an
way down.
elementary school, for that matter.
No, if you remember that it's $14 million to remodel according to theirs. Maybe if they look at some different prices, they'll be able to do it for 10.
Well, maybe we can do the libraries much cheaper too. If we do the master plan, we'll know.
But if you don't have the money to borrow, where's your money coming from? Another tax increase?
Same place yours would be coming from if you was getting it for some other cause.
But it's a tax increase, Gary, is what you're talking about. Is that what you're for?
I didn't say anything about tax increase.
Well, my point is, if you get a plan that's going to be out of date.
You're going in a circle on me, and I can't figure out where you stop.
Well, Gary, we get a plan, right? But we don't have the money to implement the plan. It sounds nice to get a plan. It's always good to get a plan. But if we can't implement it for 8 years,
well, maybe we can if we
We should have asked for a plan.
Wait a minute, can we take these funds and put them in an account and deal with this?
Leave it there.
Leave it there.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I think that if we put these funds over here, and at a later date,
That's a good idea.
when we can talk a little bit more about master plan, the funding will be there if we wanted to use it for that or use it for something else.
And the only reason we got into it tonight at all is, as you see, the third item down is we do have a request from the schools for some funding, and so as we were working on where can we find some of that, we put this together. But you're absolutely right. We can certainly.
Thank you, because I don't think that I'm capable of making a decision tonight about each one of these categories. I mean, it's like somebody's giving me $1 million and then tell me what you want to do with it.
Really, the only one that we need some guidance on tonight is the first slide.
That's right.
And
When you come in, and let me tell you how you can do that one if you want to set it aside
That's
as
true.
well.
Right.
Is you can put it in special contingencies and you can make your decisions later. The only thing I would say about that is if you want to allocate ongoing operating dollars to the schools, they will likely want to know what that amount is so they can build it into their budget.
That's true.
Other than that, when you come back next Monday, you'll be asked, set the tax rate. If you go along what we've advertised, it's 89 cents. And when you set the operating budget, it would be set at, well, I think I actually have it here on the last slide,
Yeah,
the
it is.
total amount.
Right.
And we can hold everything else in special contingencies at that point until you're ready to make a decision about how you want to allocate it. It's up to you.
Yeah, I think Gordon.
But we'll be making a decision next week on this.
Yeah, except-
Because the school board needs to know and have
Yeah.
a good idea of what monies are going to be available to them.
Right. That would be the critical one.
Well, I would, sorry.
We
Somebody
have
else.
two critical things then.
So just going back to the first slide, sorry. That's the one we need to make some decisions on today so that we can prepare the budget for
Yes.
voting on.
So we can finish the
Next
budget. You can hold some things out, but like we've discussed, schools likely want to know specifically what's available.
Right.
They probably are going to want to know how much you intend to provide for them for their request on item number 3, which you'll discuss later.
Yeah. I mean, personally, just where I am right now is that I would be fine with the first and the third item. I think I'm provisionally okay with the work crew, but is there a way that we can put it in undesignated for right
You can
now?
put it in special
And then when
contingency.
we just get the information back, then we can
Then you can move it out if you want to do that.
move it out? Then-
Yes.
Then that's where I would be right now.
Is
Yeah,
this
me both.
one, is this 156 for the school, is that on top of their budget too?
Yes.
What do they need that money for?
It's not on top of their budget, it's on top of what we've allocated them, which is
Yes.
$1.9 million less than.
But no, but actually they got $2.3 million because the 425,000 plus the $1.9 million.
Sorry, but we were below what the money that we are suggesting to allocate before this 156 was below what their request was by how much was it? I thought it was
3.9 was the request, if I remember the numbers right, and then
We funded
so we take that.
2.3.
And we're giving
Yeah.
So
1.9.
1.6 we're short, roughly. So this would.
I'm looking at the superintendent too. Does that sound
Sorry,
right?
1.6. So this would make up some of that difference.
1.5.
1.5.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
5 what?
Can we give y'all that $19,000 maintenance and put the rest of it in the kitty somewhere?
We can certainly do whatever the board would desire.
What did you say?
I said, let them have that 19,000 for public safety maintenance, put the rest of it in a little kitty somewhere. I like to know bottom dollar what the school's requested.
Well, it's.
I mean, the public safety building maintenance contracts, that would be on the county side, not the school side.
No, I know
Oh,
that, yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Know what I'm saying? Let Craig and them have that maintenance contract.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the rest of it, like the inmate crew and the increase to schools, and the rest of it, put it in the pot.
Put it in special contingencies until we work it through.
Well, I like to know the bottom dollar, what the school wants. I mean, each
Isn't
category
that
got
in the
something.
thing?
What they gonna spend it on?
It's in the
We're
letter.
gonna get there in just a minute.
Yeah, it's in the
I think.
letter.
I think. If we have enough stamina to last.
Oh, we good.
I mean,
I told Carol to cut this presentation to 4 slides. And
Can I do my
spending it on what
third
part
part?
there.
Yes.
Then they got might give us something saying.
Okay. This is the balance of the undesignated monies where we left off. And on your consent agenda tonight was the transfer to school capital for the land at Shawville Elementary School. That was $74,700. So the little check marks beside of that, because that's technically has already been allocated for that purpose. The other two things on here are just some things that we had thrown out. What I might suggest is the $13,000 you need for the burn building is we just take that from the restoring the capital reserve, which is what the county normally does, is roll that back up to $500,000 every year. This would just come from that and net it down.
I got a question about that. Okay, help me with, it is going to fire and rescue, but it's paying for water. So help me understand what that's
rather
about.
than
Go ahead.
Well, rather than appropriating the money directly to the PSA, which I know this board has been criticized in the past for
Right, you don't do that.
shoring up the PSA, if you give it to fire and rescue, which is part of the county operations, then when the PSA builds for that service, fire and rescue can reimburse it. So it's a true payment to the PSA to offset that $13,000 and doesn't come directly from the board to the PSA.
But it is tax dollars.
It is tax, well, it's tax dollars that are being used to provide a service that's also tax related, which is fire and rescue.
Well,
So they got it.
Where we get it from.
They got
but
400
need it,
some thousand
And they
dollars,
volunteer, and this is for their training, and
oh,
to
I
me,
think
it's-
they should have it.
so
I don't have a problem with
I'm not, whether it comes from the animal shelter or the capital reserve.
No,
I'm
not the
flexible.
animal shelter. No, 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 no.
Well, we get to still decide. We haven't voted on
Shelter and get it done.
Yeah.
Choose your weapons.
We need to just take it from the cap.
That's what I feel like.
Well, the reason I asked that question is I wanted to make it clear to people that we're not connecting houses to a water system with county tax money that comes from everybody. I want to make it clear what it's being used for.
Right, we can't do that.
Okay, next Monday,
We allocated to
you'll
the
be
farmers'
asked to
commission.
set the tax
Makes
rate,
sense.
and what was advertised is 89 cents. There's the budget amount from slide 1 with ongoing revenue, and what I understood was $19,000 can go for the maintenance contracts, and then we hold everything else in special contingencies?
No.
No, okay.
No, I would prefer that the $156,249 be allocated to schools, and the $99,500 be put in special contingencies.
I guess I'm with Todd at this point in time. I'll say we'll all vote on it on Monday in regards to the budget.
Well, I guess we can't vote in work session.
No, but I'm just, to give the chair an idea where we're at.
Okay.
All right, so are you talking about for these windfall dollars?
No.
Page 1.
I know, I know that, but I'm saying over here, we've got a couple more things for
Page
schools.
Yeah, but we're not, we don't need to discuss that. We don't need to decide that tonight. We need to discuss.
I know, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying, all the rest of it, even all the things on this page will go in special contingency of the one-time funds? Is that what
The
you're saying?
one-time monies will just be appropriated for availability July 1. So you can at any time between now and then decide what you want to do. You can have another discussion about how you want to allocate those later.
Right,
And some of
okay,
and some
all
of
right.
those may get allocated when we talk about the third item on the work
Right, you
session.
still
so-
have that discussion with the third item on here.
Okay,
I
okay.
want to understand when we put the budget together here, and I want to make sure that I don't confuse what people are saying. We put the $19,000 for the maintenance contracts. The $99,500 is going in special contingencies. Now, is everybody okay with allocating the $156,249 to schools?
I would think we need to.
Yeah, well, we'd have to, yeah, we'd have to take I guess we can get some sort of consensus now, and then we could.
And if there's not consensus, Mr. Chair, that amount along with the
Would be
99.5 can be
open.
put in special contingency, and then you can move it back out post-budget.
Is it consensus that we allocate $156,249 to schools?
I'm okay.
There's one, there's two,
There's three.
there's three, and there's four.
That's not consensus. Okay.
That's consensus.
Is that considered consensus?
Yeah, that's consensus.
All
We
right.
can't take a formal vote.
We can't vote until we come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gotta add that in there. Okay, that. And just
All right,
those.
then,
Okay.
okay, whether it's windfall or what have you, we're gonna have, right at this point, before you get to number 3, is, 600, $78, 707.
Yeah.
That's one. And the other one is 404, 360. Even though 74 has already been taken out.
Yes, ma'am. Of the windfall dollars that you'll need to decide, some of it you may decide tonight, some of it you may decide later. There's
Right.
678, 707 available of that. And then of the undesignated dollars, which we've talked about during the last several meetings,
Right.
that amount is down to 404, 360, although you did allocate 74.7 of that tonight through the consent agenda, so whatever.
Okay, so
So it's
then
about 300 and, what is that, 330,000?
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to look at the slide that's up on the screen right now, This lists the surplus funds from the bond monies in school accounts that are available for reallocation.
That's what I want.
The ongoing dollars that you've just given a majority consensus to allocate to schools is the $156,249. The school buses and one-time money, that's what we have listed under your windfall dollars for $153,707, and the technology monies for $150. If you add all of those together, it's about $1 million.
Why are the ongoing dollars in that? Because everything else is
Just to
one-time
show
money.
schools, just to show for schools, that's all.
But schools for what?
Just to show how much of the dollars, new dollars from these pages would be allocated to schools if you followed what were on these possible uses. It has no other purpose.
Okay.
Just to add them all up. Okay, if there's not any more questions or discussion at this point, I'm going to sit down and let you move on with your rest of your work.
And thank you. You've been there for quite a while.
I've done this a few times.
That was almost an hour and a half PowerPoint.
Yeah, you might have to bring a lunch next time.
Mr. Chair, the next item under our work session is the discussion of eliminating the split voting precincts in Montgomery County. There was some discussion about whether that would be best accomplished through a resolution or simply a letter. And so for your discussion this evening under tab E, you have a resolution that's been proposed.
And then there's a revision.
And there is a revision, which I will pass out.
Okay. I've got one.
This is a revision to which?
The res.
Just above tab A. It's just above.
Oh, give me one. I don't know.
So it's a revision to the resolution, not to the letter.
Right. This is a revision to the.
And what's changed here?
What's different about it?
Marty, do you want to address what changed from what's in the packet to the?
Bipartisan support with Montgomery County to request the General Assembly to.
The first four words are the only difference. That first whereas.
The first whereas, what I just handed out to you, the only difference between
That's the only difference.
that and the packet is the first sentence in the first paragraph.
That's it.
Then also under tab E, there is a draft of a letter to the governor's office under my signature for your consideration if you wanted to simply send a letter. And I will tell you, if the board decides to send a resolution, we will modify the letter to reference the resolution as well. But there was some discussion about, do we need a resolution or not, or would a letter simply suffice? And wanted the board to have the opportunity to give staff direction on that.
I obviously sent out the emails in regards to the resolution. Had a chance to talk with Joseph. We asked our legislators to put this forward. We've asked for it for several years. We're only talking about roughly 80 voters. And this is going to save maybe $20,000 potentially. It's going to eliminate a lot of voter confusion. The split precincts, we voted for it unanimously in the past. It's not been a Republican issue, a Democrat issue. It has been simply our issue, and it's been something that we've requested. We had one of our delegates put forth the bill just like we asked them to, and so I would move. Well, I guess we can't move now because we're in work session still, but I'll be moving it when we come out that we pass the resolution. I wanted to make it clear that we're not attacking the governor. He may have not known that this was a bipartisan. He may have received bad information that the more voters, and in his radio address he talked about worrying about the constitutionality. Well, constitutionality does address, and it would violate the Constitution if you were doing this to change an election or moving thousands of voters from one, but these are just technical changes. Sometimes just 2 and 3 houses are being moved into one district or another. And And to me, if we're going to ask our legislators to put forward bills, that we need to support them. And I would be asking when we come out of session to pass a resolution and then send the letter with it, and bipartisan support.
Oh, I like the idea of sending the letter, a letter with the resolution, and it is something that we asked for. And I think probably what happened is everything just got packed under one label. And when the governor went to consider it, it was just all together. But it is something that we've asked for, and I don't see why it would be inappropriate to ask for reconsideration and do it in a nice manner. It's not, I don't think there's anything in here that would be upsetting. I mean, let's think about it. Like, we've been asked to reconsider things before too, sometimes, and we do. So I think it's okay as long as, we're all on board with it.
And I agree with you, Mary. I think there were some more controversial redistricting. There were some large districts being changed, and I don't think that ours applies when you're talking about roughly 80 voters.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But I don't know what others think. I don't know.
Okay. But you guys have a comment?
No, I agree.
Well, I guess we have consensus on a letter and a resolution.
And Mr. Chair, we can add this resolution to the agenda once we come out of work session if that's the desire of the board to move forward.
I think it's, did they reconvene when?
15.
Tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Or,
Okay.
excuse me,
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yes.
So
Wednesday,
that's why
so
it's really-
it's timely.
We've got to do it tonight.
Yeah.
And don't be disappointed if nothing happens. We're just trying to,
Well, I think you have to put up an effort anyway, not just roll over and play dead. Ready to go to number 3?
Yes, sir. Number 3, I'm sorry, I'm
that's tab F.
under, I'm sorry, I've got too many.
It's tab F.
I believe it is tab F. Yes, ma'am. We have the request from Superintendent Blackburn for request for capital funds. It's, as mentioned, it's under tab F in your agenda. It's a request to appropriate $775,000 for capital improvements. And the details, $275,000 represents $25,000 for a state grant match to address safety enhancements, and $250,000 for building repair and roof maintenance. $150,000 is requested to support continued improvements in IT hardware, and $350,000 is requested to replace 4 buses.
I did watch a portion and review part of the school boards. They are expecting between $1.6 and $1.7 million rollover money, if I heard correctly. And so that's going to be out there in regards to addressing some of their needs, to be able to address some of their maintenance. If that comes to fruition, I understand that's just a prediction.
Does all this money they're asking for, does that take care of the employees? I mean, I haven't seen none of that, if they're going to be taken care of or anything.
I think the idea was that if this money could come from a different source, then it would allow for more money to be in the operating budget for the use for employees. I think that was the purpose of trying to see if there was another way to get this money. And then that would give them more flexibility with their operating budget in order to help their employees. That was my understanding. And we've got Ms. Blackburn here if we need to ask
we
her.
ask
but that's-
That is correct. The second paragraph of the letter said these items are part of the original school board budget request for fiscal year 16. Due to the potential gap between identified needs and available funding, I ask that the board consider this request for one-time funds to support the school division's capital needs. So yes, they would use this money, which would free up funding that they ask for in their budget request for fiscal year 16 to be put towards some other uses.
No,
Can we
go
ask her to tell us?
I was just so I'm clear on one of the slides that Carol had put up earlier is that some of the existing bond proceeds which
Yeah,
had
we need
gone
to see that
towards
again.
school projects could be used in this instance because these are
Some of those funds could be used for roof replacements or other capital needs, yes.
yes. Okay.
Yes.
But they're having maintenance, the school buses, they've got a replacement program every single year. So if we utilize the bond money, obviously there's not going to be bond money next year. And so basically by using one-time money for reoccurring expenses, this is basically kicking the can down to next year. Do you see what and I guess I'll put this to my fellow board members. We do have a windfall, and that's part of this. And we do have some reoccurring money. But if we utilize the bond money, they're still going to have roofs that are going to have to be replaced. And they're going to have to start looking at their budget, in my mind, and coming up with a maintenance program every single year to be able to address. Now, in the past, they've used the rollover money to address. And then when you're talking about $1.6, $1.7 million, that could really get close to the $2 million that the Cardinal Fund talked about. But in my mind, I remember some of the rollover funds have not been used for maintenance. They've been a lot of other things that the rollover funds have been used for. And I continue to worry about the lack of utilizing those funds, at least, those big, large-time, one-time monies that are coming back in to address their long-term capital maintenance.
I think some of these proceeds here, I was reading something to where they have 125 buses.
Yeah.
And the replacement, I mean, with the budget that they have, I think they're replacing 4.4 annually. And to me, when you look at 125 and working that number through, you've got a lot of aged buses in the fleet, and this would probably help them along some.
Would.
Yeah.
We were talking about it before, too.
Well, that can
I
use
just wanted to
any
be
of the
sure,
money that
because
is
we were talking about
from
that.
any of these buildings that have been tore down. That is what that money was supposed to be for. Other than that, should go back to the citizens of this.
The money that we surplus when we sell the property,
Yes,
when we sell the property, it goes in an account for capital.
for them to have capital expenses, which would be roofs and windows and air conditioners and that type of thing.
I mean, I understand two things. It could go for capital projects, school capital projects, or to pay the debt down.
And it never got to school capital products until within the last 2 years. All the time before that I've been on this board, it was for just what I just stated.
Yeah, but when we elected to put that additional 2 cents aside, that this board would control that money, that it would not be utilized for other things unless the schools come and requested it from us for our approval. They just couldn't dip in it.
Well, they do that.
They can't dip in it.
Down on nothing.
Yeah, but they can't dip in that money without this board's authorization.
And to my knowledge, we have not dipped in. Maybe I'm wrong. We have not dipped into
we have not dipped into
$1.4 million, a nickel of it at this point in time. We've been setting that aside.
Right.
And that we're getting ready to go into roughly our third year.
Get ready.
Have to.
The Pied Piper's coming.
So the leftover bond money could only be used for the roof repair, is that correct?
I guess it's capital projects, not for, I guess, salary and operating costs. You have to, from what I believe, it's for capital projects.
It can't
That would be the
used
two
for
fifty.
small, it's gotta be a major capital project. I think it's what Marty, I can't
Yeah,
remember if Marty or Craig was telling us.
Yeah.
Somebody said the other night.
Yeah, I think so. I was trying to figure out how to pay for the roofs, so they wouldn't fall in. Okay.
Well, it had 250 for roof replacement
Yeah.
projects.
So, I mean, you could take that out of the bond money, the 250,000, because it's a,
The roof
not.
replacements,
what can you use leftover bond money for in regards to your facilities?
it typically has to be rolled over for, or used for other capital projects.
Okay.
You can't put it, right, you can't put it into operating funds.
Right, but does that include roof repair or not?
No, it's capital.
The roof is capital.
Roof is capital, windows are capital.
Yeah, painting,
Sidewalks are capital.
minor painting's not. If you are refurbishing the whole building, you could argue it could be, but
So if we were refurbishing the old Christiansburg Middle School, that
That's
$500,000 could go towards that as well.
that's capital. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's down pretty slick. Just stop and look at it.
How much do we have in the capital reserve fund, did you say?
The money we've set aside already in capital reserve for schools, Carol, isn't it about 6.5 million? I can't remember off the top of my head. The 2 pennies that we're putting aside.
Yeah, let me just get our terms correct here.
Thank
The
you.
capital reserve is what we call the $500,000 we set aside in a little reserve in case emergencies happen.
Thank you. Sorry.
The school capital fund is actually where the 2 cents goes each year, and at the time that was approved, it was approved for future school capital projects. And that's likely the reason it hasn't been used for other things at this point, although the board could change your mind and decide to do something different. I believe it's about $6.5 million.
That's ringing a bell with me
somewhere
too,
in there.
but-
I'll
Well,
look it up to be sure here.
didn't we put some other money other than the 2 cents?
Yes.
Yes.
At the year when we had the 12-cent tax increase and we had the large windfall, the board transferred $3 million additional into that account.
So that's part of the 6.5?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I figured.
Yes, ma'am.
That's a lot of money.
No, it's not much if you're going to build a school.
I said, that's getting closer to that 14 million. We need to just pay for it in cash and not have to borrow.
Oh, dream
That's
on.
Right, you had $3 million from the windfall, $3.5 million from the 2 cents set aside to date, and $204,000 from the sale of the property, and I've not added back in the
The
most
150,
recent sale.
the 155 that we just received for the old Junkin Street property.
155.
And the 74.7
yeah.
that we just appropriated tonight.
So that puts us at
Pardon me?
Ten.
The 74,700 we just
That's correct.
appropriated tonight.
2 additional items to add.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, let me
That's
add that up.
434 plus 6.5 million.
And we're about
Which
seven,
is
right at 7
7
million.
We're about 7 million then, right
and
now.
as soon as you can talk to those Blacksburg Town Council members, we can get that property sold. We're there.
Well, I thought you would do it since it's for Christiansburg.
Well, no, I could get you.
Well, I guess what I would ask is there any creative way that we might have to and somehow address this so that they would have more flexibility in their operating budget? And I guess I would have to ask staff, is there any way we can, how do you go about doing this?
Well, we have.
If we
this.
wanted to do part of it?
Well, and that's, as Carol identified earlier, in the opportunities from the windfall money and the opportunities from the, well, that was just, it was the windfall money where that was. The second slide, yes.
Well, we had 156,249.
And,
Should have left this up.
Ongoing funds, right?
yes, ma'am.
Let me ask y'all, a question. How many buses do you think that they're going to buy this year from what we've just done?
I cannot remember.
We said 2.
I watched one of the school board meetings and they talked about it, and I can't remember the exact amount of buses.
Well, they're right out there in the audience. We could ask them.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Let's ask them.
Can someone tell us how many buses that you intend to buy next year? So we get that number straight in our brains.
The school budget has a section at the very end called capital expenditures. And on line 66, I budget every year $181,525 to buy 2 buses.
2 buses.
That's from the school's general operating fund. On line 67, replace one-time funds for replacement of aging bus fleet. I've asked for the funds from the supervisors to purchase 4 additionals. So that would mean in 2015-16, there would be a grand total of 6 buses purchased. In the last 3 years, 2 of the last 3 years, you provided us $550,000 from one-time funds, which we used to purchase the roofing project issues, 2 buses, and the technology continuation of the 21st century classroom largely. Last year, you were unable to do that, and we used $550,000 from school carryover to replace that $550,000. So the commitment was kept in each of the last 3 years to buy the buses, to fix the roofs, and to continue the technology hardware purchases, not people from that money, but technology hardware. This year, in our carryover budget, we also budgeted for 2 reserve teacher units. And about 6 weeks or so ago, I determined that we were not going to have to use those 2 reserve teacher units. So we wrote a letter to you all requesting that I be able to convert that money to 2 additional buses, plus it also let us buy some cameras and a few things like that go along with the buses. And that purchase order has already been cut to buy those 2 buses. So in the last 3 years, we have faithfully implemented the capital requests that have been made both to the supervisors and to my school board in the budget. Those items that we're discussing this evening are in the regular school board budget for 15-16. However, we remain $1.459503 short of a balanced budget, which is why we're asking to look for alternative sources for some of the capital. I expect that we may be able to trim some of that $1.5 million by some changes that we might make in the insurance plan, by the implementation of an early retirement plan again this year. A priority for our board, and they've clearly stated it, is to try to do the 2-step improvement for employee salaries. Number 2, to cover not only keeping the part-time incentive for our part-time employees, but to also do $1.5 million in additional health care as required by the Affordable Health Care Act. So the budget is a comprehensive approach. It tried to move some things that we had been doing from one-time money back into the general fund so that it would recur, because they were obviously recurring expenses like a social worker and that kind of thing. But tonight, what you're looking at is the capital budget, and that's how the board intends to spend it.
Okay.
Any questions?
So if you get this 700, your employees still keep their incentive program?
The budget as it's written right now includes keeping the part-time incentive and adding $1.5 million to provide the health insurance for that category of employees. Yes.
And I know I brought this up at your meeting about doing what we have had to do in many private employers in order to comply with the Affordable Care Act, and to avoid the $1.5 million is to reduce and get yourself under 30 hours and to get yourself down to 29 hours, hiring more additional part-time employees. And that is still something that your board will not consider. Is that fair to say?
We are doing it with our substitute teachers because they also fall in a category that they could become considered eligible for the Affordable Health Care Act benefits. But we are not able to do it from an instructional perspective for the large number of instructional assistants that we have in our schools that work directly with children. They generally meet the child at the bus and they walk out the door with the bus. If you went to hiring 2 part-time, 2 even shorter houred employees, you would get into a problem of having difficulty filling it with consistent people when you're hiring a 15-hour position.
That's right.
You'd also have the additional cost of, there is a cost involved in hiring 2 people for 1 position. So it didn't seem appropriate, and it is not something that our board has spoken favorably about, and it has been presented.
Questions?
So if you get all of the money that we've looked at tonight, every bit that's up there, how short will you be?
You talked about $156,000 in the operating fund. You talked about the potential of, let me see where the other was. 153 in the windfall money, which was 2 buses. And you talked about from your undesignated, nothing there, I don't think. Somewhere I saw 150 for technology in the windfall. So that's 150, that's 300. That's $450,000 about.
And then the $550,000 roughly from the funds from the bond money left over to go towards capital. So that would put you roughly at the $1 million on that one slide that was shown. So that would still leave you about $500,000 short.
That's correct. I deliberately had not asked, nor had the board specifically asked, that you look at the bond carryover, specifically because of the fact that it has additional kinds of flexibility in terms of long-term construction projects. And so we were looking for more short-term funding sources if we could find it, so that the $500,000 that's sitting there could ultimately be rolled into either an emergency situation or into the big capital projects that we know we face on the horizon.
So you're saying that your board would prefer us not to include that $500,000 at this time?
At this time, that's correct.
Okay.
Is there a time limit on the use of those funds?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I know some of the monies were borrowed for Price's Fork.
Yeah, some of them have been there for some time, and it depends upon how far out you're looking. I mean, if you're looking at 2023, we'd want to close those bond accounts before then.
Right.
And then put your county money, which has the most flexibility, toward whatever future capital. So it depends on how quickly you would be looking at them, but you don't want to keep them open for another 5 or 10 years.
Well, that's what I was asking, you know. Is there a mandatory time limit on it, or is it just something that we need to go ahead and just get off the books?
I don't know there's a mandatory date that says by this date you have to, but yes, you should get them off the books as quickly as you can.
Yeah, certainly if that's the guidance from the county in terms of the best financial practices, then we would be more than willing to tap those funds. We had looked at them from the perspective that they might have long-term flexibility for new construction projects.
Thank you.
They can, if we get them off the books, do we have to immediately transfer that money to the school board, or can we hold that in special contingencies in the county? Because the county can't make money off of those bonds, right?
No, but
Right.
that's not an issue at this point in time for that, because we don't pay.
We don't make money on any of our money.
I know what you're saying.
It's not a lot. I think the issue is you have some of those bonds, as was mentioned out there from the Price's Fork School and the Eastern Montgomery Elementary School, and some things that with the small balances, you're going to want to close those out. No, there's not, that I'm aware of, an absolute date that says you only have X number of years left to do it. But you would want to get those cleaned up and closed out rather than hanging them on for a long period of time for those small amounts of money. What you could do in terms of looking at that for the future, and again, all those monies are in the school capital fund, okay? They're in the capital projects fund right now, they're just sitting there. In order to close the accounts, you would move those to a different project and spend them out. If you want to save monies, then some of the windfall money here that we were looking at allocating, you could switch them out in some way. But the concept is once the bonds are there for a period of time, they've served their purpose, they just have small amounts left, you're going to want to close out those bond accounts.
Okay, thank you for explaining.
Okay. What do we want to, what is the preference of this board when it comes to this request?
I don't know, because I still can't figure out where the money's coming from. I thought,
we got 8 places.
Well, Mr. Chairman, and I know that there's some things that we said we needed to take action on, and I know there's consensus on that. Maybe perhaps allowing us to digest this. We're going to be coming up on the budget next week, and then try to give the school board an answer. Try to give them, because they deserve it. We didn't like it when the state pushed off too far, but perhaps table this part of it until next week and not take action this evening.
may I ask a question?
Sure.
When is it that the school board has to send out their contracts with, or do they have flexibility in setting out contracts without a salary listed, or how does that work? Because I think isn't April a special date, Ms. Blackburn, that?
We can issue the contracts without having a dollar salary in them.
Okay, so that gives you flexibility to, because I think the whole issue is if we don't do something with the request and it stays in their budget, then yes, it will impact what they can do for their employees.
Right. I'm not saying we put it off for months. I'm saying we put it off for give us
So well, that's what I was trying to figure out, if she had the flexibility to offer a contract without a salary. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
I guess that'd be all right for existing teachers, but before it's a new teacher, you know.
Now, is this $775,000, is that on top of this other money too? Is that what they're asking for?
I think that they're asking for 1.5, but or approximately total is what they would like to see. Right now, if you look at that, one of the slides that was up, there's $1 million that roughly is out there, and that includes that 500 and some odd thousand from the bond. So that roughly the money that we're proposing, or at least the staff and what we've seen tonight, is about 500,000, give or take. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
That's right. It's about 450,000. Yes.
Put up that slide about $1 million that we're giving to the schools.
Yeah.
Again, so we can just
So we can digest it.
And that's in addition to the 190.
Well, and I want to make sure everybody understands that slide that Carol's looking for right now was just simply an addition of all the, we were talking about what funds could possibly be available. And the first, everything that totals to that 560,000, those are bond proceeds from various projects, Price's Fort, SMS, Elliston, Lafayette, that was set aside for demolition, some money that was set aside for inspections and engineering. So in the monies that are currently set aside from those bonds, there's $560,000 left. What Ms. Blackburn is saying is they had not considered pulling those funds in for these needs. They've kind of kept them as their reserve for emergencies or whatnot. And then what we've proposed staff-wise, what Carol had was $156,000 from the ongoing dollars, 153,707 for buses, and 150,000 from technology from the windfall fund. So if you take the difference between that 1,020,000 and 560, it's about 450.
$450, okay.
459,956. Thank you.
Pretty close.
459,956.
So what staff had conjectured, if you will, in those slides were if the board wanted to take some of the various funds, we were saying there's about 460,000 available within our one-time money and our ongoing funds that could be used to address that 775 that Ms. Blackburn was just talking about.
We might not do the 775, but at least we can do the 460. You know, if you look at it, the total bond surplus available is 560, and I could understand that being a rainy day or emergency type fund for the school board. So it leaves about $460,000 that I think we could move forward on that.
So you'd rather leave the bonds alone?
Yeah, well,
the bonds,
it's what the school board, what she conveyed to us, that the school board, that was like their emergency fund, or rainy day fund, or whatever, that they didn't necessarily want to touch that.
Bill, I'm not opposed to the 459. I don't.
Yeah.
But I'd like I said, I'd like to think about it. Maybe let. And I don't know if the school board's going to. They're not. I'm trying to remember. Are they going to meet before? No, they don't meet next week.
They meet after we meet.
They meet
after we do.
And so I was looking to get a better idea of if that was the 459, how would they spend it? And because beforehand, they're coming up with some ideas, hoping that we're going to fund a lot more.
Creative ideas.
And I get what they're trying to do, and I want us to continue the good relationship that we've been working on for the last 3 years.
3, how about 20?
And so I guess I'm looking at that 459. I would like to hear what their ideas of what that money would be going towards. But I'm not opposed to seeing that 459 go towards the schools. But at least that's where I'm at. I wouldn't mind putting it off the vote until next week. I don't know it does any harm. It gives us time to digest it.
I'd like to see us take some of this money somewhere and put a little more money in the dog pound and Parks and Rec. And there's Parks and Rec's on a slippery slope.
Well, it don't seem like we're gonna make any headway. When you said put it off to next week.
Yes, sir.
Is that a consensus? Give us time to digest some of it and maybe come up with some better ideas and things, because I think we're just sort of deadlocked right now, just discussing it.
And that would just be to discuss the one-time monies, correct?
Yeah.
Well, because the 156, I think y'all are we're going to vote on, not y'all, but we're going to vote on.
That'll be included in the budget.
Right, that's
we
going to be
discussed.
voted on.
It'll be parked to the side till you decide to move it out or leave it.
And so it's only the 253 is really not 253. I'm sorry, it's getting late. 303.
Yes. The ongoing monies we've already discussed. 4 of us wanted that too, but everything else would just be put to the side, and we talk about that next week.
Yes,
I'm okay with that.
Everybody okay?
That's fine.
Might be able to survive.
I'm ready to go home.
We got a lot more agenda.
Can I make a motion to go out of work session?
I would second
Okay,
that motion.
have a motion and a second to go out of work session. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed? You two aren't.
Mr. King? Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
Excused, you two.
Any action following work session?
Yes, sir. The resolution that was discussed under tab E, there is a resolution under tab E. It was modified with the handout that I provided to the board with the change in that first sentence.
Golly, I'm in the wrong thing.
I guess the question would, I think the consensus was to add that under new business for adoption.
I believe that was, and I guess, do I need to make it a motion to add it to new business?
No, I think you can, no, we changed it.
That's right, just take action out of work.
Following work session.
So
Yeah.
I would move that we pass the amended resolution with the additional language and to accompany a letter written by Craig. So in regards.
And I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Any other action coming out of there? Okay, new business, subject A. Fourth Amendment to the former Prices Fork Elementary Real Estate Purchase and Sales Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would there be any discussion?
Could somebody just very briefly explain why we're...
Yeah, there's two reasons. One, we've reached an agreement with them on how the road improvements will be done. If VDOT, we got preliminary approval from VDOT, not official approval about the
Revenue sharing money.
project. We think it's going to go forward. If it does go forward, the developer will be providing $100,000 to the county that we can then use to match VDOT. But and that'll go toward paying our costs. In the agreement, they pay $50,000 when they get either the improvements are done, which probably will be the case, but when they get a CO on their building, they pay us $50,000, and then the other $50,000 will come in when they start building on the back, or it's all due whenever the property is sold. Okay. And the other big change is, it's not big, but it extended the review period until June 1st. And what they're looking at there is just to make sure they get everything clarified with VDOT and what they need to do in order to get their project going from an improvement standpoint. We got an email just the other day where 48, the owner, to-be owner, has authorized his attorney to start closing documents. So we'll get this approved. He's already signed it, and then I think we'll be closing probably in the next 30, 60 days.
The only contingency that's held it up for as long as it has just been making sure the road issues out there are addressed, and that's Mr. Fortier's been ready to go for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully we'll be closing soon.
Any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject B, appointment Alcohol Safety Action Program.
Mr. Chairman, I will not, since I am the chairman of that board, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to vote on that, and so I'm going to be abstaining in regards to that. I don't know, do I need to step off the dais for that?
No.
Okay.
No,
You just need a motion.
So moved.
And have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
I would be abstaining for the reasons stated previously.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject C, proclamation National Library Week.
So moved.
Second.
And that's April 12th through the 18th, 2015 for our audience.
Started yesterday.
That's out there. Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject D, proclamation National Volunteer Week.
Motion. Second.
Have a second, and then have a motion and a second until it's getting late. Will the clerk please call a roll?
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And that-
Subject E,
The favorite.
proclaim May 2015 as Older Americans Month. Well, we can all celebrate it.
that one.
You guys should all abstain, right?
You moved it.
Oh, Lord.
We-
Maybe a conflict.
Yeah.
Me and Chris are the only ones who can vote on it.
I don't know, Todd, I don't know.
I can't vote on it, he's too
No.
young.
Yeah. Do-
Man's
Well, Matt's
Matt's
not
not
a
vote
man.
on it
Yeah.
either.
Did we
You
have a
can't
motion and a second?
Yeah.
You got a motion and we got a second, okay. No motion and a second. And, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
You sure it's not a conflict of interest if I vote? Yeah, okay.
7 ayes.
Okay. Subject F, proclaim May 2nd through May 10th, 2015 as National Travel and Tourism Week.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We're going to move right into the county attorney's report.
We're gonna move right out.
County administrator's report.
One item I just want to mention this evening, and I appreciate Mr. Willis bringing this up earlier. We are watching to see what may happen with the State Board of Elections and the WinVote voting machines. If those are decertified, we'll have to have a conversation about what that means and what that may cost. About 20% of the localities in Virginia currently use the machine similar to what we have, so we're hopeful that they may find a way to continue to allow us to do that, but I will certainly keep you posted. And that's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Creed.
Yeah, I'd hope you laid away some money for the machines. I don't have it.
Mr. King.
No report.
Supervisor Biggs.
I just have one thing. We met with Penny Franklin and Andy Morikawa last week, Bill and I and Craig, about the Human Relations Council. They didn't really come looking for money. What they came to tell us is they're trying to reestablish it, and Penny and Andy are interested in sort of taking that on. And in order to do that, they need a copy of the bylaws, and by the next day, Craig had 3 copies of the bylaws, all in the right chronological order. And so I think they're going to take those back and figure out what to do. So
I
that was the
appreciate it.
report on that. Thank you for getting those so fast.
Well, thank you for crediting me, but Judy Kaiser and Susan Stewart found those pretty quick. Now, Vicki had some role in that too, I think.
Well, thank whoever.
It was a
'cause
group
great. And that's all.
Supervisor Perkins.
Just one thing, I'd just like to ask the board to consider, as they're thinking this week about the budget, the increased funding for Christiansburg Institute. And that's it.
Supervisor Tuck.
For those of you who might be watching the videotape, you may have seen Supervisor King running in right at the beginning of the closed session. It was just right at the start and walking in. Well, there's a real good reason why he was running late, and it's because he was working an accident as a volunteer fireman. And I'd just like to thank him on this volunteer week and recognize you for that service, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing else.
Supervisor Gabriel.
No report.
Adjourn. I have the strength
Are we
to put the
done?
gavel